Hey everyone, Dr. Z. Welcome to my show, our show. Ron, what's up?
Not much.
Dude.
It's been a long time. I can't believe it's been a year pre-vaccine.
Pre-vaccine before we talk to each other. So for those who don't know Dr. Sinha, my introductions are getting sketchier and sketchier as I go on. Dr. Ron Sinha is an internist. He's the medical director at Palo Alto Medical Foundation, my old haunts. He's a writer. He's a corporate wellness expert. You've really kind of become an expert on the sort of health of South Asian communities in particular and their metabolic challenges and so on. And you and I have been in cahoots talking about all kinds of things during COVID because COVID is a metabolic disease, meaning it seems to affect people with diabetes, with insulin resistance, with tendencies to inflammation.
Yep.
And you've given us all these tips in previous shows on like how we can run the COVID marathon better, even if we get it, right? And this was pre-vaccine, like you said last time we talked.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to let people know what the basic scope of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about, again, like surviving and thriving COVID, the after effects of COVID that you're seeing in the clinic. But we're going to talk about the bigger picture of stress, the connection to something bigger than us that we're missing that is causing people to get sick, how our mind and our body are one thing, and what you're seeing on the front lines here in the Silicon Valley with the kids and parents of the kids that are in a pressure cooker. And it's heartbreaking. We were talking off camera about this stuff, and you recently sent a letter to your patients and stuff that really kind of nailed this down. But I think that's what we're going to talk about. What do you think?
Sure, absolutely. I won't be home till tomorrow, so it's all good, man.
Even better.
Good, yeah.
Look at that.
Right, we're going all night.
We're going all night.
Let's do it.
Yeah, the audience will be with us probably. The five of them that watch. So, brother, just so people know, like your background is internal medicine, right?
Right.
So you had a full-time primary care practice.
Yep, but I did before. Yeah.
So what are you doing now?
So now really my full-time job really is corporate wellness, going out to companies and really teaching audiences how to lead better, healthier lives. So I design a lot of strategy for what sorts of wellness programs we can design. And then really how do we bring innovative clinical services to busy employees? And as you can imagine, in the stay-at-home world right now, the whole work environment has changed quite a bit. So we're trying to look for different strategies to keep people healthier. And you can imagine people on the couch, in the bed, in awkward positions trying to work. You've got your kids screaming in the next room. It's like a totally different work environment than it was pre-COVID, right? So
it really is. Yeah. And the thing is now we don't have as much help at home, right? So like, for example, right now I just realized we're recording. I am running everything myself. All this equipment I have to figure out. We've spent 20 minutes trying to set it up, get the shot right, get you in focus. And I realized I forgot to put my acoustic dampener over this, so the fan noise is too loud. So you tell these guys what's up while I get this.
Absolutely. I'll go on a little soliloquy here. Yeah, totally. No, but the work environment has been very difficult for a lot of folks. I mean, I think in the initial phases, people are like, hey, it's so great to be with family. This is wonderful. I'm away from work. But now I think the long-term repercussions of just working from home has been really challenging for folks. Yeah. And I think I was telling you too, even for me, I find that after a couple of days of trying to work from home, I can start going pretty stir crazy. So I just need to exit the facilities and find a different place.
If I didn't have this studio, I would have quit this a long time ago.
Yeah.
Because I find working from home to be very stressful because for me, what it is the attention is divided between, like, say, it's family there, other like personal things that you have in the house, and this other mindset of like, oh, I have this profession, I need to do this, I need to do this.
Totally.
And that division can create a kind of a inner conflict that manifests physically. Like it can feel like a tension, it can feel like a headache.
True. Yep.
Right? Are you seeing this?
My boys are in high school, so they're not even in the house half the time. But there's parts of my conscious mind that are thinking about their room or what they have to do when they get back. So it's just very unfocused, So definitely getting out of that environment's really key.
Yeah. And you throw a little OCD in there, like I have, and like in the house, I'm just like, damn, my daughter left all her hairs everywhere, and I'm just like picking up these big long, daughter hairs, and I'm like, they're not mine. I know they're not mine. Yeah, and it causes that kind of stress. So, are you seeing manifestations of this in the corporate wellness space, physically, in terms of how people are presenting with complaints?
Yes. I mean, chronic stress has been an issue all along, even before COVID-19, but definitely the intensity and the volume of that stress has gotten much greater. And the types of things is, a lot of these patients I've been following for many years, but many of them really just reached a breaking point. Initially, there was that honeymoon period of the pandemic where they felt like, hey, I'm connecting with family. I get to walk in the neighborhood and do a lot of these things. But I think it's reached a point where I think they felt like there was an end point to this pandemic, and now they don't see that, and they're really starting to unravel. And I think a lot of folks have really, and now, we're hearing news about, a second surge during the holidays, et cetera. So people are really feeling pretty helpless right now. So giving them tools to really anchor into stress reduction is becoming critical, because otherwise they just can't move forward with the rest of their lives.
It's it seems that the public policy responses sometimes to COVID have continued to feed a kind of media apparatus that continues to feed a fear apparatus because it generates revenue. Yeah. And I think, listen, some of that is very valid, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a serious pandemic, but at the same time, we don't look at things holistically at all.
Yep.
We don't consider the effects of some of our policies in terms of generating this kind of serious mental health stuff. And we call it mental health crisis, but it's really actually a health crisis because they're the same thing, right?
It is.
And this is something that struck me in the letter you wrote your patients. It was a very brave thing to do because you connected sort of this idea of physical health, mental health, how we're treating our children and our expectations for the children, how they're manifesting disease early and often in a way that they never did, to this idea that we're even spiritually disconnected from anything larger than ourselves or from ourselves, our true selves.
Yep.
And if we reconnected with that, then we might actually see improvements across the board. How do you think about this?
I think you nailed it. I think a lot of us are going through an identity crisis, and we've had time to think and pause and reflect on that a little bit, right? It's like so many people at work are like, what is my purpose? Am I going to be working at this company for the next 10 or 15 years? Is this really the job that's going to fulfill me? Like, I think people are having like an early midlife or late life or early life crisis, and they're asking those big questions. So I think that's a positive, Z. I think we needed something like this to help people reflect. But I think they're still caught in the rat race, the expectations that were put upon their shoulders from an early age. Even though I've written a book on South Asian health, I see a very diverse population, and they've come to this country with a lot of expectations put on their shoulders. And even though they've met some of those expectations, they feel even more empty and unfulfilled. So, this is really something I want to put out there so people are aware of that, because everything else we talk about, intermittent fasting, exercise, all of that, it means absolutely nothing if we're disconnected from that self. I have plenty of patients that are athletes, they've got six packs, they could not be more aerobically fit, but they're miserably unhappy because that foundation of really connecting to their true identity is dissipated.
There are not a lot of doctors talking about this, and I find it really unfortunate. And that's a real euphemism. It's really unfortunate because this idea that that aspect of us is separate from this aspect of us is a false dichotomy. Yeah. It's not true. I just heard a podcast with Ian McGilchrist, who's a famous psychiatrist, kind of neuroscientist, philosopher, who's written books about the left and right hemisphere and how they take on different roles, called Master and Emissary, or Emissary and Master. I forget what it is. And he wrote a new book called The Matter with Things, meaning the idea that we think all this stuff is actually matter and so on. And what he said is, there in science and in philosophy and in religion and in spirituality, we've created this false dichotomy that almost is a left-right brain split, because the left brain loves to categorize, reduce, simplify, concretize. And the right brain is more like big picture, holistic, emotional, seeing connections. It can only see things in context. You move a context, you take a part out of the whole, it becomes something completely different. But to the left brain, it's still that little part out, just totally isolated. I feel like in medicine, Western medicine in particular, we've really left brainified so much of this that when someone like you comes along and says, hey, there's this whole other part of us that the right brain has always known, that we've kind of ignored. And so what happens when we ignore it? We feel this weird tension. Sometimes it manifests physically. We used to call those things a conversion disorder. Right? Now we call them functional neurologic disorder. We're seeing a lot of it after vaccination. People who are very nervous about vaccine, who've been conditioned a certain way, they get the vaccine, they suddenly are numb on one half of their side, the whole body. And it neurologists can't figure out what's going on.
Totally. I mean, what you brought up, that whole entity of emotional suppression, it is the root cause for so much human pain and suffering. And this is not something, I'm not being spiritual here. I mean, you can look at the medical science behind individuals that suppress emotions on a persistent basis. And for a lot of us, that's become our default status. We're not even aware of that. So it's interesting, when I see patients in the clinic, I often will kind of, shoot the crap with them. And I'm like, hey, what are you up to? What's sort of your work? What's your family life like? And a lot of times they'll tell me, hey, I'm working at a company. I'm actually going to night school. I've got 2 young kids. And then I ask them after that, how are stress levels? And they're like, they're okay. They're manageable. I'm like, that's impossible for you to be doing all of that and not be under high stress, right? So they've created this identity or this shell where they're just suppressing all of those emotions. In the meantime, I'm looking at their blood pressure, their weight, their blood sugar, their metabolics, and all the sensor lights are full steam ahead. But they're not even aware of that because that's become sort of the norm of their living status.
So when you say the sensor lights are full steam ahead, you mean like they're off, they're not good?
No, they're not good. Yeah, they're off. We've got red lines in terms of their health metrics, looking at their blood sugar, their blood pressure, all the vital metrics of mitochondrial health that I end up looking at in the practice. They're off, but there's no self-awareness around that because this is sort of the new norm, right? To be overwhelmed and be tense and have these racing thoughts constantly. This has become sort of the default status for a lot of folks.
You and I have talked about this before.
Yeah.
And it made sense intellectually. It finally hit home in a truly experiential way for me when, and I don't know, I don't think I ever told you this. When I was younger, every time I checked my blood pressure at a doctor's office, it would be through the roof.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and every time I would check it at home when I was completely relaxed, it was fine.
Yeah.
When I'd go to a store and check it at like a drugstore or something, it would be borderline high, if not high. And my pulse was I always had PVCs, pulse was low because I exercised. I was one of those guys that just exercised all the time.
Totally.
But I could feel something. Like you could feel there was something not right. And stressed all the time, medical school, residency, all of this, high levels of cortisol all the time, always had like an extra 5-10 pounds hanging on me. And all of that started to change only in the last few years when I started really doing what is authentically me, like letting go of this other stuff that I'm trying to be something that I'm not. And then something really remarkable. So my blood pressure now is, was 120/80, typically somewhere in that range. Sometimes it can get to like 130 if I'm having a bad day and I'm at a drugstore. But at home, it's usually quite good. So I went to this meditation retreat, which I've talked about on the show, and you and I've talked about off camera, for 6 days of semi-silent retreat. And I came back, and a couple interesting sensor metrics changed. One is I had lost 4 pounds at the retreat, eating the same amount of food, if not more, and exercising not at all. And I normally exercise 1 to 2 hours a day at a gym. So that was one thing that was interesting. The second thing was when I checked my blood pressure, it was persistently 100/60. So 20 points lower on both systolic and diastolic consistently. And that was not entering a meditative state. That was just the standard presence that I cultivated. I've never, and the third thing that happened was the intrusive thoughts about food that I've had all my life, that I've been conditioned, food is comfort, always thinking about the next meal. They didn't fully disappear, but when they arise, I saw them as thoughts and not mine. Just like, oh, look at this thought. Hi, friend. Bye, friend. Gone. So since I've come back, that weight has stayed off.
Look at that.
And the intrusive thoughts. So if you look at my metrics, blood pressure, I haven't even checked blood sugar, weight, probably cortisol levels, stress, they've all plummeted.
In what, 6 days you said the retreat was?
6 days of retreat. And that was intensive. It was probably the equivalent of like 2 years of like therapy, meditation.
Right. Imagine what that would do to healthcare costs, right? Just 6 days of that compared to what we're doing right now.
Could you imagine if we actually had insurance companies cover that?
Yeah.
Hey, there's a good scam. We should get into that.
There we go. Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
But hey, you're not an outlier. I mean, this is what I see over and over. We're pretty familiar with this entity called white coat hypertension, right? So blood pressure goes up in the office, or reverse white coat, where a lot of individuals see their blood pressure is normal with me, but when they're with their significant other, it goes up. So it's actually worse at home, right?
Oh,
So we
wow.
often see that. But I also see what I call white coat hyperglycemia quite a bit, because I have a lot of patients on continuous glucose monitors. I'm actually running corporate programs now using these CGM sensors.
Wow.
And you'd be amazed at the types of data that I get. So I'll give you one example of an individual that was in our program who had the best blood sugars I've seen. Just glucose is fantastic, stable as heck. Then she recorded in her diary one fight with her father-in-law over politics, COVID, etc.
Standard nowadays.
Exactly. And the spike of her blood sugar was up to like 170 plus. She'd never seen a blood sugar like that. And the interesting thing is she went out, she kind of recentered herself, came back, had a slice of chocolate cake. The chocolate cake barely touched the blood sugar. So I literally wrote a post on this saying stress is worse than chocolate cake, because we had direct evidence of that glycemic response. So, and I've seen that in my case too. If I'm internalizing a lot of stress, my sensor data is like off the charts. So there are individuals that have what I call, in a simplified language, a very sensitive liver. So some of us, the cortisol has a major impact on the liver. It triggers gluconeogenesis, and we see these glucose spikes that are happening that we're never aware of, right? Because of these sensors, we can see that in real time. Otherwise, you're getting a once-a-year fasting blood sugar, some of their A1C tests, but now we can see these impacts in real time. So that's the first one. The second one I want to highlight is the weight loss. Like my female patients in particular cannot believe the impact of stress on their body weight. It's only after I have them doing less high-intensity exercise, doing more walks, taking more breaks, that they start to see that their body weight starts to shed. But we've been conditioned that the more you burn calories, the more you work out intensely, that's going to happen. But like you said, that has a cortisol impact on the body, especially if you're running a business, you've got 2 young kids, and now you're doing Peloton, like high-intensity classes 5-6 days a week. Your body will not let go of fat, especially that subcutaneous fat will just be locked in until we get rid of that mindset. So it's pretty crazy. I wouldn't believe it. Like a lot of people listening might be like, what are we talking about? But I've seen this in countless patients over and over through corporate programs. So getting people to center themselves. And the thing that you brought up is that sense of purpose. Like a couple of my patients, when they found the job or the sense of purpose that they had, their numbers, even without meditating or exercising, they changed just because their mindset, they're doing something they love, they enjoy. So they're just things outside of the traditional eat less, exercise more, things that are happening on a different level that affect our metabolism ways that are unbelievable, right? Not things you're going to find in the New England Journal of Medicine or a typical mainstream journal, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
So many things in what you said. So, okay, back to the continuous glucose monitor.
Yeah.
This is like a biofeedback device at this point, because you're seeing directly how your mental state affects your hormonal state, which affects your glucose state, particularly, like you said, with those with sensitive livers. Gluconeogenesis, meaning creating new glucose in the liver, it goes up if you have cortisol as a trigger, correct?
Exactly.
And the cortisol is a stress hormone. And one thing I want to put an extra punctuation point on is when we use exercise as yet another thing we need to accomplish in the day, it generates cortisol.
Yeah.
And that's why in the absence of that exercise drive, I actually lost weight.
Right. That's so true.
Because that went away and it was compensated for by my plummeting cortisol levels. Now, this idea of purpose and connection, absolutely key. That's what we are as humans. We're meaning-seeking machines. And the great resignation, as they're calling it, where people are just quitting their jobs. It couldn't have come any sooner. Like people, listen, dude, I know you do a lot of corporate wellness stuff, and you can't say this. I'm going to say this. I've had corporations reach out to me and say, "Hey, could you give us a talk for our employees on how we can retain our employees?"
Yeah.
And I say, well, I'm going to tell them that if this is not the path they should be walking, they need to leave because now is the time. Now is the time when the labor market's tight and all this stuff is like, now's you have the most freedom to live your life. We need to switch from this consumer economy where we're all trying to get stuff to a creator economy where, and creation just simply means living your story.
That's right.
That may be as simple as, I always wanted to be a farmer. I'm going to go be a farmer.
Yep.
It's that simple. Now, the other thing that you mentioned is in women, you said you have these women patients that when they address the stress, the pounds come off and vice versa, right?
Yeah.
You talked about emotional repression. I think those are tied because part of the vicious cycle of weight gain, you're stressed, you gain weight. Then there's an emotional component, which is shame.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not good enough. I don't have the willpower. I can't.
Totally.
I've always struggled with weight. I'm broken. Right? And shame is one of those emotions where it's like, it's a shield around a deeper emotion probably, but it says don't look in here because what's in here is fundamentally corrupt and broken.
Yeah.
Nobody, not even you, even me, I can't look in here.
Yeah. I'll give you an example on that too is, I am a big a fan of prescribing fasting in a methodical way in my clinic.
Interesting.
But I've seen a lot of women take fasting to levels that they shouldn't be taking it to.
Dysfunctional levels.
Completely dysfunctional levels. And actually did a dedicated podcast on how we've taken fasting too far. Because a lot of women, especially when they read about the science of it, one of the things that gets pitched about fasting, which is really powerful, is this concept of autophagy, how you're basically renewing your cells, right? You're getting rid of the bad cells and regenerating new ones. If you've already got a personal mindset that you're shameful about yourself and you want to replace this body, then the impact of that is, let me just fast longer and longer.
Oh, good Lord.
Right?
Yeah.
So I see some women that, and they come to my office in tears. They're like, I'm doing 18/6s. I've done, 24, 48-hour fasts. And they're barely losing any weight at all, which tells you the power of the body's ability to actually hold on to body fat when you're under stress. And a lot of this, like you said, is just driven by shame. So I've got to really teach them to say, just lose the word fasting right now. Let's focus on nourishing your body again. And counterintuitively, when they're actually eating more and in a healthy way, they end up losing that fat. So we have to really be aware of these things because you're right, that shame itself can just cause so much dysfunctionality.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because fasting has been such a thing, and it can be very. You've talked about this. I'm a 1 meal a day type of person that's finally settled in that this is my way of eating.
For some people.
It's a lifestyle I can live with that works for me. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
But the shame-driven emotional component of weight is so powerful.
Yeah.
And I think, even for me, I remember a story when I was a kid, because I was always a very fat little kid, because my mother, typical Indian mother, just feed, and came to the U.S. And I think she was stressed and everybody was stressed, and it was fine, right? I mean, this was love, but I would eat a lot. And so I came to school. I think I've told this story. I came to school with a lunchbox, and I always hid away 2 sandwiches in there because one was not enough. And I would look forward to the lunch. And one time I remember, and I would eat them kind of secretly. And one time I remember the lunchbox fell open. I was getting off the bus, and all these girls were around. I don't know what grade I was in, and they were laughing. They're going, "Oh my gosh, Zubin has 2 sandwiches!" Oh my gosh, oh my god, dude! The amount
man, that's
of
a memory you hold with you for so long.
I still have it.
So,
I mean, I must have been in 4th grade.
Oh my
I was
gosh.
just so ashamed, and so then you overcompensate. In middle school, I didn't even eat lunch. I was like, no, I'm not going to eat lunch. No, I'm in control of this. Nope, no one's going to see the dirtiest part of me, which is constantly thinking about food.
Right, totally.
As
so
a comfort, as a solace.
Yeah.
How come we can't address that?
I think we need to. When we talk about, in the psychedelics are in the news, right? Things like psilocybin. But there's a philosophy that we talk about, which is set and setting. What is a mindset and what is the environment that you're in? Obviously, if you're raving at a party and doing psychedelic drugs, that's going to have a different impact than being in a therapeutic setting where your mindset is self-healing and being around the right type of people. Well, with fasting, it's the same thing. How did fasting originate thousands of years ago? The mindset was for self-purification, to disconnect from the ego, to be in a state of self-healing. But now it's fasting is for shedding body fat and achieving perfect body composition. It's it's ego-driven now, the whole practice of fasting. So that's another way that I say, if your intent of fasting is just to shed your old body and bring on a new body that's got a 6-pack on it, you got to be really careful with that mindset, right? So and literally for some of my patients, just shifting that mindset and looking at fasting as a practice that, hey, maybe I'm going to fast for my late father. If you believe in a God or a higher spirit, let's do it with that purpose in mind, and don't pay attention to the weigh scale right now. When you eat and feed yourself during your feeding windows, let's eat really good quality foods then, because a lot of people that fast are just under eating, or they're rebound eating a lot of junk food during that window. But just again, coming to that mindset and the original intent of fasting, when that shifts, we see a completely different outcome that happens from fasting. And I think that's a message that we're not getting out there. Instagrammers, whatever, they're just showing pictures of their 6-packs after fasting for 48 hours. I think we have to be very careful, because fasting is medicine, but like any medicine, you can overdose and get toxicity from it if it's not done the right way.
Man, that's no one's talking about that, man.
Yeah.
And I got to say, well, no one at least that I've seen. And I got to say this about what you just said. This idea of fasting as a kind of a sacrament is a powerful mindset. One thing that I got out of this retreat was that it feels like, and I'm not speaking about actually, even scientifically, everything is energy, meaning matter is just energy. They're equivalent. And Ian McGilchrist, in this interview on Rebel Wisdom, my friend David Fuller's podcast, was talking about this. He was saying, you can actually consider matter, one hypothesis is matter is like a condensed form of energy or consciousness, and awareness itself is like the water, the liquid form, and thought, emotion, sensation is more like the gas form. Actually, I added that part because I think it's interesting. These phases of experience are like phases of matter. And so when you think about your body, it's really a field of energy. So what you put in it is energetic. And if you put junk in it, if you're trying to manipulate it to physically look a certain way, that may be the wrong approach. It may be more, what does it feel like energetically to you to do this? And when I came out of this thing, it felt like, I just don't have an interest in worrying about food in that way. And when I eat, I pay very close attention to what I'm eating now. But again, so much is mindset. You said set and setting. With psychedelics, it's true. With meditation, it's true. With living your life, it's true.
Absolutely. And with the job thing, I got to tell you, I've seen a lot of folks come to my clinic that have shifted between 8 to 10 companies.
Wow.
And we got to think about the fact that as much as sometimes people feel like, this is not the right job for me. If the mindset doesn't shift, there's never going to be a right job because you'll be miserable no matter what company you work for. You'll be miserable even if you're at home starting your own business. It's like at some point you've got to pause and think about, how do I really fix the individual structure so it can thrive in any environment, and then find the right environment for that.
This is a key thing. How many people, like you said, how many people that go job to job to job, but the same dysfunction is there.
That's right.
The fundamental setting, we don't value in this society the work. And even therapy, I'm going to say something very controversial.
Go for it.
We talk about therapy a lot. In fact, therapy has been destigmatized, which is wonderful. I think it's powerful. I think it can be an important tool. I haven't done it myself, but I think I would benefit from it. But I'd say we almost have taken therapy and put it in the place of deeper work that we can do on ourselves. That's more trans-egoic, more beyond thought. Because therapy is thought-based most of the time. There's some mindfulness-based therapy, but it's really about like altering thought, looking at thought, dredging up thought, pulling out identity, working on identity, chiseling, not always, but chiseling identity. Okay, that's all important. But what about questioning identity entirely?
Totally.
What about really looking in and going, okay, what am I really, and what am I here to do? And when that authenticity happens, presence occurs, and then you're you, like the real you. Like a hole in the universe channeling creativity from nowhere.
Exactly. And you brought up the word creativity a few times, and there's several different types of rest, and there's I think her name is Dr. Sandra Dalton, it might be Smith, but she did a TED Talk on the 7 types of rest. And it's got the usual things like sleep, obviously mental disconnect, digital disconnection, but creativity is a big one on her list. And that's something I'm actually asking a lot of my patients about when I do high school sessions is, what do you do throughout your day that's actually creative? I mean, you are blessed with so much creative talent. And I think in many phases of your career, you felt like that was probably suppressed to some degree, right?
Severely.
You wanted to just expose that and just put it out there. I think all of us as human beings have that natural tendency to want to create, but sometimes we've suppressed that because that inner child has been squashed. We're going for the status, we're going for the materialism. But some of my patients, when they've reconnected to music, to art, or even their side business, I tell them, don't attach goals to it like I've got to make $1 billion by in 10 years. Just try, learn how to create your own media or your music or your website. Just focus on that. And that's a real primal urge we all have, but I think a lot of us have just forgotten. And we get to a certain age where like, I'm too old to pick up the guitar. I'm too old to play the piano. I'm like, no, this is an ideal time. This is when your heart and soul need it more than anything. You don't have to be a virtuoso, but just start something that takes you out of that mindset.
That's brilliant advice, man. And man, these patients are lucky to have you. Really, you're truly an enlightened being. Like the more I talk to you, the more I'm like, we were put together for a reason. That's the other thing that you start to notice the more present you become, that these ideas of synchronicities in the world,
completely,
they're real. Like you things just seem to click. When you're open. My late friend Tony Shea, who was a great example of both the incredible transcendent good of being in touch with who you are and the struggles of ego and social conditioning and all the other things that ultimately, took his life.
Yeah.
Addiction and substance abuse and all of that. And he had a saying, and he changed my life. He was the one who opened the door to like, you can be you.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And he had a saying that there's this thing called return on luck, where when we think we're one way, we think this is our identity, we think this is what's expected of us, we close our minds to what's actually occurring now. And when you open yourself to that, what we call luck is just the universe doing its thing.
Yeah.
When you're open to it, amazing things happen.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Right? And I think so many of our patients and of ourselves and our children, like talk about our kids a little bit, because you're seeing these kids. And,
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I need a drink of water.
Oh yeah,
this.
me
It's
too,
a deep
man.
thing.
This is something that, we the media use these hackneyed phrases of like, the mental health crisis in kids, and COVID's made it worse and so on. And we've done a lot of things like closing schools and that have been very harmful to especially lower socioeconomic status children. But tell me what's going on with kids, because this is an epiphenomenon of everything we've just been talking about, I think.
Well, I think we already tried to attach a false identity to kids from a very early age. We ask them to choose role models that may not resonate with who they are. So here in Silicon Valley, I'll give an example. It's like as people are raising their kids, this is pre-controversy, but let's try to be like Steve Jobs. Let's try to be like Mark Zuckerberg. Hey, maybe my kid can be like Elon, right? So we already program our kids into identities that we think will bring them success. And I'm not saying parents have malintent. They just feel like, okay, there's a whole universe out there, and if they follow this specific program path, they're going to achieve that level of success. But then when these kids achieve it, because I see every generation. I see teenagers, I see parents, I see grandparents as well, and they're always shocked that, wow, my kid is like on the cover of Fortune magazine making all this money, but they went through a divorce. They're dealing with chronic health issues. They're a workaholic. So the thing is, we cannot stick to that same playbook. The people that have been most successful had a foundation of self-realization, some spiritual knowledge that they started from, and that pointed them in the right direction. We often, when we think of somebody like, let's take Steve Jobs, for example, right? Because he's an icon in Silicon Valley. But what's the story that people tell their kids about becoming like Steve Jobs? Work your ass off, be just single focus minded, whatever. We have this path that we pay attention to, but we forget about the foundation of where he's created his intuition. He had a huge foundation of connection to the East, to Hinduism. At his funeral, I don't know if you know about this, but at his funeral, when he actually at his funeral had all the guests show up, at the end, he basically had placed brown boxes for all the guests that came to his funeral. And when they opened it up, there was a book in there called Autobiography of a Yogi, Swami Yogananda, right? Yeah, Yogananda. So it's like that's the last parting gift he gave to individuals. So this is something we talked about before. I think we're missing is that left brain kind of mixing with that energetic state that you've been talking about. I know we call it kind of like a woo-woo state, but the old philosophers, the Einsteins, the Teslas, right, they were mixing with Eastern philosophers because they had reached the pinnacle of their knowledge and they wanted to know what else is out there? Like, how could this miracle be created? And they were open about doing that. But here in today's state, you wouldn't see a scientist, necessarily a PhD, sitting down with somebody with an orange robe. That just wouldn't happen. Yeah. If you were Albert Einstein, I don't think you'd invite like somebody in an orange robe to be on your podcast, right? I mean, back now that just doesn't happen anymore. But I think we have to start infusing a little bit of that Eastern wisdom so people, like you said, can really identify their true self. Not to bash therapy, but it is, when people go on these retreats 5-6 days, or if they've had a controlled psychedelic experience, they often say that this is more powerful than 10 years of therapy. And again, I'm not diminishing therapy.
You need it too, yeah.
But you need a combination of both because we're clearly not curing the mental health crisis with the approach that we have right now to mental health.
Yeah, man. Yeah, Ron. So I feel like we take an egoic approach to fixing the ego.
Yeah.
In some way, these structures. And look, there's a role for that. Everything is true but partial. But there's this Jobs used to tell his engineers, have you done LSD yet? Have you tried LSD yet? And this was very irresponsible because he's not talking about set and setting. Right. But this was obviously the 70s and the 80s. But he had done those things. I think he'd gone to India. This was a spiritual practice. That's right. A key thing. Actually, one person in his autobiography described him as an enlightened being who was also cruel. Mm-hmm. And I think that was powerful because there's a there's a false notion that you can have a spiritual awakening and that's the end of the path and you're good forever. But we all know these gurus who are complete assholes.
Totally.
And Jobs was an asshole to many, many people, very egoic, because that's not the end of the unfolding of realization. It's a constant, you have to integrate emotion. You have to do shadow work. You have to do therapy. You all of it is necessary to be as highly realized a human as you can. And the people that I know that are very highly realized, you can feel it.
Totally.
They're empty of ego. There may be a trace of a fixation here and there, but they've done that work.
Yeah.
And the people I know who've awakened who have not done that work, all they have now is a spiritually empowered ego that is used to dominate other people.
So true.
And I think in the Silicon Valley in particular, I went on a retreat, man, so I could get more focused, so I could just crush it.
That's exactly right. Their intent is completely different. It is totally ego-driven. And that's the big tension that I see, because especially, here in Silicon Valley, we have a lot of CEOs of companies that come from the East. They're immigrants here. And there's this complete tension between, they've got that Eastern tradition deep down inside, but they've also got this material obsession, right? This responsibility to just crush it right now. So my friends, my family back home will see me on the cover of this magazine. But when you mix at some level of spirituality with that materialism, the conflict and clash that happens, often that combustion can be worse than having just one of those things, right? So I think it's kind of sad. In my practice, I see a lot of the folks from the East are actually meditating less than my patients from the West, because I think the Westerners have gone through the cycle of material already, and they're actually at a point now where they feel like, what else is out there? They're more open using Headspace or going on a silent retreat. But it's interesting because a lot of my patients who are of Indian origin, they're much more resistant. They're not doing the practices. They've disconnected more. And I'm having to literally say, did your grandfather used to do this, or your aunt? And they're like, yeah, they used to do this. I'm like, how do I reconnect you to that tradition? So really finding that optimal blend is really critical.
How fascinating. I did an interview 2 days ago with a science fiction critic and writer who specializes in story and mythology, Damien Walter, from the UK, lives in Bali now. And he's quite a spiritual character too. And he said something really interesting, which is in ancient traditions, the story and the mythology of the hero's journey, the coming of age, and the usually often for young boys especially, because it was a different mythology for women, incorporated the spiritual growth as part of the story, and people often had an identity that was solid before they went on spiritual journeys.
Yeah.
He says now in the West, what we find is people want to do this hero's journey that they see in Star Wars or something, and it's an egoic hero's journey. Like, I'm the prodigal son, I'll go out and do all these things, I'll come back and I'll get accolades at home, like the Indian coming here, I'll be on the cover of Forbes, all of that. But when the spiritual side of it, or the trans egoic side of it comes in, they don't have that story-based foundation to integrate that into it. Yep. And it becomes disconnected. And in some cases, he sees Westerners going to Bali or to Chiang Mai in Thailand and doing these 30-day silent retreats and becoming destabilized. Their identity becomes so fluid, they don't know what's going on, and they've never had a tradition to anchor it to. They don't know what it means, and they don't have help.
Interesting.
And it becomes destabilizing. So there's a lot of nuance even in this journey. Now, another thing you said, and sorry, I talk a lot, but I get excited about this.
Go ahead, yeah.
The other thing you said is that the Westerners have had this materialistic journey, and now they're coming back to this, or they're finding this spiritual side because they find it empty.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that, like an embryo, and I said this on the show with Damien, like an embryo, we recapitulate. We have to go through these phases of our evolution. So we have a tail at one point, we have gill slits at one point. They get reabsorbed because we've moved on. But it's still part of who we are. We've transcended and included this unique part of who we are. I think human development's the same way. We go through these stages and we cannot skip. So we have to really try to focus on optimizing the stages that we're at instead of trying to skip through or trying to deny or getting stuck in a stage. We need to transcend and include each stage. So that means we do need to go through our materialistic striving stage, but we need to be supported and understand that it's not the end. So we do struggle and we go through that, like medical school or going to college or whatever it is. If we deprive people of that, they end up at the next stage totally destabilized. And then you have things like woke culture and all this madness that's going on because people haven't done that previous work. So I think that is something that we can as a society say, okay, yeah. Let's try to optimize each stage and really nurture it. The inner child, instead of repressing it, leaving it behind, include it, transcendent, include it. You know, one of the weird meditative experiences I had on this retreat was actually experiencing my, little inner Zubin, little child that was, such a misfit, but was so curious and all this other, and just going, why am I denying this little child? Like, here, come here. Like, you're me, you're okay. And that's hard. That's hard work, and it can be
very hard.
It can be emotional,
I'm getting choked up just thinking about it. Yeah, totally. Yeah. But I got to tell you, when you say energy, you sent me that clip of when you came back from the retreat, and I told you this. I watched for a couple of minutes, and I felt like I was watching a different Z. And just through watching that, it had an emotional impact on me. It's like, if that's not energy, like, transcending, boundaries, physical boundaries, I don't know what is. But it was amazing within those couple of minutes. I was like, my God, Zubin, this is amazing.
And when I read the email you sent me, I felt it energetically.
Right,
I was like, oh my God, like through the word, through the ether. Like, we can bash social media and technology all we want, but it's a tool.
Oh, completely.
If we use the tool the way that humans are designed, which is we are these social energetic creatures, the feeling of transmission of emotion and energy is a real thing that I experienced at the retreat too. 30 silent people in a room together. You start to share. It's indescribable. And actually, if I start talking about it, people will think I'm crazy because in the Western model, this makes no sense. But very interesting things happen where you are energetically connected to people. Because I do think we're all one thing. We're all this, there was a great, I forget who did it, but it was a graduation speech, like water, right? The fish doesn't even know the water it's swimming in. But that is what this is. It's all one thing, one substance. Yeah.
Whew.
I know. It gets crazy. Okay, let's bring it back to the concrete. Medicine. You and I share something in that we are frustrated with the standard practice of medicine. We feel it's either a little too reductionistic, it's missing a bigger picture, or it's missing these biopsychosocial components. And a lot of my guests actually focus on this holistic integration. So Rachel Zoffness is a UCSF pain psychologist, specializes in kids actually, and says, hey, pain is biopsychosocial. It has biological components, psychological components, and social components. And I think what you're saying about your patients is it's the same with everything.
Totally.
Right? And you could even say biopsychosocial, spiritual. I mean, spiritual is really a psychological, trans-psychological component. And even the word spiritual, it's so loaded with stigma.
Completely. Yeah.
Whether there's organized religion, whether it's, weird meditation, but then you look at a guy like Sam Harris, who is about the pinnacle of rational thought. And he's as spiritual a person as you can imagine. He has an app called Waking Up.
Right, totally.
It is becoming okay.
I think, thank goodness, we have a new generation of leaders in this space that have just enough of the scientific language and context to pull the skeptics into it, right?
Right.
As much as I know sometimes it seems silly to have apps for meditation and things, I mean, let's use technology for the right purposes, right? I mean, that for a lot of people is the bridge to going on a silent retreat all of a sudden because you want more. You're like, okay, there's only so much I can get out of my phone. I want to sit with people or with people that have been doing this for decades and learn from them. So I think one of the things in the medical system right now is we all know that the pacing is just impossible, right? I mean, seeing a patient every 15, 20 minutes. Luckily, I have a lifestyle practice where I can spend 60 minutes. But once you can find those resources, I have so many resources now, whether it's books, retreats, or places that you can send patients. And we're patients, when they trust us, they really will follow the advice and resources we give them. We have to really extend the care outside of the clinics and connect them to these other leaders or tools and resources that can help them achieve not full self-realization, but some sort of partial self-realization so they know there's more to life than just the rat race, that they're basically running in.
Yeah, I love it. Lifestyle medicine is a beautiful thing. And I know David Katz and others in that community that are passionate about it. And whether they're focused on, eating less meat or whether they're focused on whatever aspect of lifestyle they are, and everyone's different, right? I think that's a practice pattern, I think, for a lot of us that can be very congruent with what we feel is authentically true. Because I think, even when I was in medical school, I was just like, a lot of this just doesn't seem right. Like, how can this be? And it's the same idea of like struggling with like, why are we even aware? Like, how does this matter make us aware?
Yeah, I mean, I wish we infused some of this in medical training, along with so many other things, knowledge about nutrition, et cetera. But many of us come out of medical training, we're pretty damaged because we're put in a hierarchical caste system. It's super competitive. We make materialistic decisions about, which profession pays more, all this.
Loans.
Loans, all this stuff. And you come out of it and why do we have 50% burnout rates and all this mental health crisis? And then we expect these products of the medical training system to heal others, right? So it's a difficult thing. It's really tough. I have a lot of patients in my clinic that are physicians, and they're struggling with self-identity, right? I mean, they've devoted so many years to medical training, and now they're at the end of that road, and they're like, what am I done, or what have I done? Was it worth me sacrificing my 20s and 30s to get here? And I've got to reset it. Like you said, all of us have to go through a process, so it's not like you should think the last few decades were a waste of your life. But now at least you're questioning it. That's a key thing, is all of us at some point have to question, okay, what is the next stage? How did that past set me up for success going forward, right? It did still give me the opportunity to connect with others and sort of go through this cycle of a little bit of pain and suffering. But just like you're going through now, because you told me transparently that at some point you were like, do I keep doing this, right? It's like, you were like at the edge. But then all of a sudden with that awakening, you realize that this is a way for me to reach more people and connect with others. You just had a different context to everything you've been doing for so many years.
It's everything you said is absolutely crucial for people to understand that because we are so, especially in medicine, we're so attached to our identities because they were hard won.
Totally.
I told a story in my piece on the retreat that was, I think, just for my supporters, and I share it with anyone who wants to hear it. They just email me hello@zdogmd.com and use meditation in the subject line, and I send them this clip. It's an hour and 20 minutes of me talking about this retreat experience, having come back, and I speak slowly, and I'll close my eyes, and I mean that's how much of that meditative presence is still there during that, and you can't shake it. And it's still there. It infuses my daily activities, but the real world intrudes, and it's kind of a sine wave of like back and forth. Totally. But every time I meditate, I'm right back there, back there. So there was a story of identity. There was a woman, one of our supporters at the retreat, who had all her life run a gym, been in the health fitness industry. So she wasn't a healthcare practitioner, but she was in fitness. And she was in wonderful shape, but we're all getting older and so on. And so her identity of this person, this identity that I've crafted for years and worked so hard on, not only to be in physical shape, but to help others get in physical shape. And here I am at this retreat, and we're saying, well, even that identity is a story that we're telling ourselves, like there's this bigger identity. Mm-hmm. And she said, I had to grieve for this identity, this thing that I'd built, and and she said she had, because she came from a Christian tradition. And this is the thing, is that this is non-denominational. It doesn't matter how you come to it. Yeah. She said she, in one of her meditative experiences during the retreat, felt like God come and just cradle this identity that she'd built and said, it's okay. This is not all you are, but this is also part of who you are. And that made it okay to say, okay, I'm going to do the next thing now, right?
Yeah.
So this is powerful for physicians. There was a piece in The Atlantic, and I'm talking about like healthcare, the typical clickbait title, healthcare workers are leaving in droves.
Right.
Like, okay, I don't know it's that simple. But there was an ER doc who, after so many years and thought she'd be a lifer, decided to leave because of all the things that are stressing. And she said, she found herself in a pumpkin patch with her kids for Halloween, was trying to, this was post leaving, didn't have a plan for what she was going to do. And just started sobbing, just broke into tears. And then when she introspected and said, why am I sobbing? She said, because I'm happy. And I haven't felt this way in years. That was powerful. In many ways, when I left Stanford and went to Las Vegas to start this clinic and do this thing, I had never felt such a weight lifted off me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. We grew up in a culture where you're supposed to be in a position for decades and decades. And even for us in medicine especially, right? We're like the most faithful profession. We have people around us that are switching companies all the time. But then it comes back to that internalization. We're like, I guess this is how it's supposed to be.
Right.
And all of a sudden, year after year goes by. And that's where it is important to have that realization that there are a lot of sensations in my body that have been held for a long time. And no matter what shifts I make within this work environment, until I let go, it's just not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
You've got to put yourself in a position to really be successful and really feel that energy that we've been suppressing for so long.
Yeah, it's really it's an opening.
It's not easy, right? It's not easy to make that move. Yeah.
And you have to let people know it's not easy. They have to forgive themselves
Totally.
if it's hard. It was even I've had to do it multiple times.
Yeah.
So for me, it's been like you leave Stanford. That was traumatic. Like it's like they say having a spiritual awakening is like dying before you die. You actually you will physically face fear and feel like you're dying. It was like that.
Yeah.
Because you're like, this was an identity, and it's so terrifying. Like, well, I'm jumping into the unknown. I don't know, how am I going to make a living? What am I doing? But there's a big, deep part of this thread underlying that's like pulling you along. It's like, this is you. Come this way.
Right.
Come this way. Come this way. And you turn. You open yourself to return on luck as much as you can. But it's terrifying. So we have to tell people that.
Yeah, we do.
That's okay. Yeah. I get a lot of emails. I'm very frustrated. Okay, so feel into that.
Yeah.
It's okay to feel into it.
Totally.
Yeah.
But, also in the positions that we're in, I think you get a lot of folks probably that reach out to you, and sometimes they get the perception that we're living the dream now.
Oh,
right?
God. Yeah.
Right? So that's like, God, if I could just be like Zubin, or maybe I could write a book like Ron, all the problems would go away.
Perfect practice like
perfect
Ron.
Practices, right?
You're working with cool devices.
With companies and stuff. But I think in the background, I think the more vulnerable we are in opening with how much deep work we have to be to keep that boat afloat, that's really important, right? I mean, again, for me, I've known you personally for some time now, but it'd be very easy for me to say, Zubin's living the dream life, right? But obviously there was a point where you needed to be awakened again to realize, okay, this is sort of the next stage. But I think as us, especially as males in the physician, in the medical profession, the more of us that can really come out and expose that vulnerability, I think we can just heal so many people in this profession, But just we've been used to just having this concrete identity where we don't want to expose people to our own pain and suffering, and it really backfires. We lose connection with people, and we lose connection with ourselves. So.
It's the central problem.
It's a central problem.
I think, really, with our own problems. And Robbie Peril, the former CEO of Permanente Medical Group, and written a couple books, and one of them was called Uncaring, about the culture of medicine. And in that book, which was quite controversial because doctors immediately were triggered, because here's this administrator, telling us how our culture is broken. And of course, he's a doctor, and he's practiced through that. But the idea that emotional repression, that not showing vulnerability was a big part of the book. Was like, we can't say we're sorry. We blame ourselves. We have this high suicide rate because we internalize everything. And we're also afraid to act on what we know is right inside. Like, oh, this is not me. Why am I still doing this? Why am I still doing this? Why am I still doing this? Oh, because the expectation is, and we gotta have student loans and all these excuses, the golden handcuffs that doctors have. And,
right.
And I think it's coming to a head now with COVID. People are just going, wait, what?
Yeah.
And I think part of the frustration that some older doctors have who train younger doctors, and this is controversial too.
Yeah.
But I've talked to many who are residency program directors and beyond, and what they find is that the young people are disillusioned already, but the way they manifest it, because they haven't gone through the acquisition phase of all that work, like the actual putting in the dues. So that you can go, God, this is bullshit.
That's true.
They've kind of skipped that a little.
Yeah.
They've done some of it for sure. But now they're like, well, I just want to be realized, which means this isn't fitting my educational paradigm. I don't want to do it. And I don't want to work that hard. And, it's like, well, actually medicine requires a lot of dedication.
Yeah.
So you do need to put in some of that effort. You can't skip a stage of evolution, but you should be supported. When we did it, you and I, Ron, we were abused. That was just part of the covenant.
Completely.
That's not okay.
Yeah.
Right? So it just gets really clear that there's a lot of nuance here.
There is. And when you're coming back to the question around kids, it's interesting because I have a lot of friends and colleagues that are in medicine, and they're telling their kids, do not go into medicine.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They're
All
like, don't go into it. Okay, you go, work for a tech company, be an investment banker. But, in my head, I'm like, that's not necessarily sending the right message either, right?
No.
Because many of us, again, it comes back to set and setting. We were kind of pushed into medicine as a material objective or a goal setting. We weren't given the foundation where medicine might have been a more fulfilling life. It might have been a calling.
Yeah.
So I think if there's kids that truly are interested in it, and then we support them and give them the emotional tools to sort of endure and go through those stages, it could be a meaningful profession. But again, if we're telling them, don't go into medicine and be an investment banker because you'll make this much more money working less hours, it's like you're setting them up for failure again.
Absolutely.
So,
What we're really saying, Ron, if we're honest, what's really being said when people say that is, I went into this. It's either one of two things. It's, I went into this with the wrong reasons and expectations, and I'm disappointed because I wanted money and stability, and it gave me that, but I'm not happy because it's not me. That's one possibility.
Right.
I think a very common possibility is I went into this for all the right reasons, caring and loving human beings, and I've been given a system and a situation where I don't get to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's more common. And now they're telling their children, don't do this, instead of saying, hey, here's why you would do this. If this is how you feel, you can do it, but you're going to have to find a part of medicine where you can do that. Either you forge your own way, or that system has to change, and we help work on it to change.
Totally.
And the other thing I have to say is, in order for systems to change, individuals have to change. We manifest the world as a collective. So if we don't wake up ourselves, then their system's still asleep.
Yeah.
We get the system that is an epiphenomenon of our egoic mind.
Right.
That's our healthcare system.
Yeah.
It's fee for service, monetized a certain way, assembly line driven, commoditized, private equity owned.
Completely.
And then you put the raw materials in, which are humans. That's not how, that's not the calling of medicine.
Right. Oh my goodness.
So with kids, what do you think, what are you telling parents then? Because what's the action item for kids in terms of your,
Yeah, I mean,
philosophy?
the reason I'm focusing a little bit now on giving talks to schools and education systems, and it's been great because I've been able to reach out to teachers who are clearly suffering so much through this pandemic, but also talking to parents. And I guess the perspective I can give them is, what is the end product of all of what we're doing right now when we're overstressing kids, signing them up for all these extracurriculars, not giving them time to sleep, not giving them time to play. They're sacrificing with this expectation that there's going to be deferred gratitude, deferred success later on in life. But I'm seeing the whole spectrum, right? And I'm not a mental health therapist. It's not like I'm selecting out these people in my practice. I'm seeing people for just lifestyle, maybe some metabolic conditions. But when I start presenting case studies to parents and families about, here's X so-and-so who's at the top of their game, and these are the types of health conditions I'm seeing. And that gives me a unique perspective on parenting, because I'm like, that is not the path to, optimal health, mental, physiological, metabolic, all of that. It does start to awaken parents. A lot of parents reach out to me and they're like, I've got to start thinking about this differently because I am caught up in the rat race. What are the neighbors' kids doing? What are my friends' kids doing? It's just, envy is one of those emotions that's a very powerful one that needs to be conquered. And I've done a lot of writing on envy. And it's funny, the way I write about envy is I tell people, I want you to respell it ENVI, because it is energy that is absolutely vile. Like when you think of envy and what it does in terms of what are your kids up to? How come my coworker got this raise? It just creates some of the most toxic emotions possible. And I want people to identify that. How often throughout the day when you're on Instagram or YouTube, somebody says something about their kid that your kid can't accomplish, that divides and separates us more than almost any emotion out there. And I see a lot of that here in Silicon Valley, right? Everybody's envious of the fact that, how did so-and-so work for that startup and make this much money? Why is so-and-so kid's going to Stanford? My kid's going to junior college. It's a constant thing that's happening, and it's so toxic, and it puts so much pressure on the kids.
Oh, man.
It's hard.
Nobody talks about envy. Nobody talks about these emotions.
Oh, my God.
Hey, okay, all right, envy. This one's amazing because, in his book, Awake, It's Your Turn, Angelo DeLullo, the physician that ran this retreat, that's a friend of mine that we've done some shows, he kind of categorizes them into primary emotions, which are just very few. It's like anger, joy, sadness, I think surprise is one of the primary emotions. There's a few. Then there's the more complex emotions that are made up of like aspects of these primary emotions that you can actually drill into. So envy is an interesting one that I haven't thought about. I feel envy a lot. I feel it when I go on social media and I see somebody more successful than me on social media. I feel it when, again, like kids.
I've been through this. Yep.
Yeah. Totally, Silicon Valley.
Yep.
Oh, I got a Tesla, but it's just a thing. And I look up how much that Tesla cost, and it's like $150,000. It's the dual motor, whatever the hell. I'm like, how'd that guy get that much money?
Yeah, exactly.
Every little thing. Every little thing.
Yeah.
And in the Silicon Valley, it's poisonous because, remember I said at this retreat, there's
By the way, I love the fact that you called it out, because people don't like acknowledge that. You could have easily said I came back from the retreat, but it is a pervasive emotion in so many people. So I love the fact that you're openly putting it on the table.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So
totally.
one of the things I learned at the retreat is just feel these emotions, call them. Everything wants to be seen for what it is.
Yeah.
If you deny deny envy, it internalizes it, manifests as rage, anger, violence, regret, all these other emotional things with repression. So, okay, you feel it. You go, okay, what is this? What is this? What's going on? Okay, first of all, here's the raw emotion. I feel something when I see this this guy making all this money. Let's make it simple.
Totally.
There's this guy making all this money. Or, they're looking at you and me. Z-Dog has got this ideal job. He's not even seeing patients all day. He's doing this thing. He gets to sit in his studio that he bought. He has these supporters who subscribe and pay him money so he can talk to them every night.
I'm envious right now, actually.
Me too. I'm envious of the guy I'm describing. Ron, he's got an awesome shirt. He's carved a niche in medicine that he loves and he's passionate about. He's really good at it. He's an expert. He's been on Atia's show and he's been on these, so all the envy. So we feel envy.
Right.
God damn it. Why, I'm good. Why can't I do that or whatever? Okay, now feel into it. What are the core emotions here? First of all, what are the thought structures attached to the emotion? Because there's emotion energy and then there's thought. Emotion is like a way station between a physical sensation, which is a certain type of energy, and thought, which is another type of energy.
Completely, yeah.
It's like a way station. It actually shifts a little bit towards the physical sensation side. That's why we call them feelings, right? It's like, envy feels a certain way. Okay, so the first thing is, where am I feeling this?
It's
right here. Right here.
Very common area, right? Right here.
Right here in the heart.
Right in the center. It's crazy.
And then we see people with chest pain in the ER that is non-cardiogenic chest pain.
Right. Yeah.
So it manifests physically, and then what are the thought structures that are tethered to it? What beliefs are here? Okay, here's a belief that money matters. That's tethered to that. Here's a belief, I'm not good enough. Here's another belief that I'm separate from that person, that we're not actually the same thing. Let's question every single one of those beliefs, that his success is not my success.
Exactly.
What is success? That's another belief. And then you drill down into the fundamental emotions. What is this? This is sadness. This is grief. This is,
And this, by the way, I just want to interrupt for a second. This comes back to parenting. I grew up with, obviously, immigrant parents that came here. There weren't Teslas back then, but everybody was fighting to get a Mercedes. House. They were
my dad had 300E.
Right?
I got it.
Getting that, totally. So it starts early on. And I remember sometimes parents' conversations about so-and-so having such a big house and their kids doing this. And then even growing up sometimes, and again, parents' intentions are good, they're pure, but it would be things like, did you see so-and-so? He's reading all the time, he's doing this and this and this. And so you sort of learn for a very early age. So I'm very sensitive to that. So with the kids, I call it out all the time, like, you know what, I felt that now. I think as parents, we need to really put those emotions on the table and just acknowledge the fact that we are vulnerable. These are sensations that are ruling our lives often, and really help them understand that. And the way I've kind of reframed it for myself is, when you watch, let's say, a sports game or something. Let's say you're watching basketball and you see Steph Curry. You're rooting for your team, whatever your team is. You're not really envious of that person. You're kind of cheering them on. And I wonder, why don't we cheer each other on like a sports team? Like if Z-Dog has tons of followers, your followers are my followers, man. Yeah, you got a lot more followers than I do, but go for it. And the interesting thing is, the more similar you are to someone, the more that envy is even more difficult. Like we see within ethnic groups, like when I talk to my Chinese friends or my Indian friends, like when they see somebody like them that's more successful, it kills them. It destroys them, right? They're like, I'm just as smart or not smarter. Why is that happening? But instead it should be, that's somebody for my team.
Oh my God, look at that.
Like that's someone for my team who's like running Google right now or doing that. But there's something really odd about that sensation. And I don't know, it's part of its childhood, part of its medical training, conditioning through that. But we can, like you said, we can unwire that. And just the fact that we're talking about it and we're acknowledging that we feel that, hopefully some people can acknowledge it. And that's why journaling is so powerful, right? I mean, writing that down today, I felt some envy. I felt some anger. And sometimes it's 3 or 4 words, but just writing the word envy on a piece of paper can just be so liberating, right? So just knowing that.
Man, that's beautiful. Everything in the universe wants to be seen for what it is. So when we repress and deny and we hide, it first of all, it generates a perpetuation of shame, which is a powerful and painful emotion. And Brene Brown's done great work on shame and vulnerability. But it allows the release of that energy. So, Angela calls emotion energy in motion.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Totally. Exactly.
I mean, it's so obvious when you look at it that way, but I'd never thought of it that way. And when you plug it up, it crystallizes. Just like I said, matter before is like the ice of consciousness. It's like that phase of consciousness. Well, if energy in motion is a kind of energy, emotion, you feel it as a sensation. Well, when you crystallize it, when you repress it, when you squeeze it, put it under pressure, what happens? Things solidify.
That's right.
Well, now an emotion is a pain in your neck, or
Sure is,
a pain in your chest, or a heaviness in your stomach, or nausea. And then we see it in the clinic.
Yeah.
And then we say, oh, it's psychogenic.
Totally.
You know, right? And that's not that simple.
That creates shame, right? And totally. We just make the cycle
I'm
worse.
crazy. It's all in my head. Yeah.
Right.
No, we're energetic beings.
Totally.
But, and again, you don't want to get, there's this thing that philosopher Ken Wilber calls the pre-trans fallacy. And I think it's important to understand when we're thinking about like medicine, because it becomes so confusing. So what this means is this: there's rational thought, which was a lot of since the Enlightenment, where we rely on science, measurement, objective truth as best as we can figure it out. That's rational thought. So we use the scientific method. That's great. Pre that, it was magical thinking, the idea that everything is like humors and spirits and energy and magic. And so pre-rational thinking is kind of like that. It's like a magical, it's like a child would say, if I wish it, if I pray to it, it will happen. If I, and then we get rational. We say, oh, actually, no, there are certain rules here and they're reproducible and they're actually universal and so on. But there's something that's trans-rational, which we don't talk about much because it's often confused with pre-rational. And that is exactly this idea that, oh, you know what? There is this collective feeling in the Bay Area of energetic tension around accomplishment. You feel it.
Yep.
You go to a different place. You go to a farm somewhere. You don't feel that.
So funny. When you land in the airport here, you just feel it already.
You feel it.
You just land it. You're like, oh my God. It's like, totally. You're
tensing.
Like, you even walking into Whole Foods where you'd think that everybody's like organic. I'm like,
Whole Foods
my God.
is the worst. It's like, because it's like the upper echelon of people who can afford to go to Whole Foods. They're just like,
they got the most organic. They got the yoga pants on.
Oh, hell yeah. Lululemon, the high-end stuff.
Right, totally.
They've driven the like beater Tesla that's $150,000.
Completely.
Oh my God. And so the trans-rational is this idea of, oh wait, there's something even beyond rational that you cannot put words on. That's why we say it's ineffable. That's why ancient wisdom traditions say you do not name God. Because by naming God, you've reduced him to a concept that's not what it is, or him or her or whatever it is. And forget about God. This experience. So journaling.
Yes.
So sorry, just to finish the trans
totally
thing. Okay.
Finish,
So the trans-rational thing I'm going to talk about in a second. It's this ineffable experience of connectedness, and it's spirituality, for lack of a better term, and energy and all these other things. So people confuse that trans-rational approach with the pre-rational approach. And that's the pre-trans fallacy. And it works in two directions. One is someone will come out and say, man, I'm not going to take vaccines because our ancestors just had it right. Like, we just got naturally infected. It was the way of nature, man. The energy of nature, that shit is real. And okay, that's a pre-rational fallacy.
Yeah.
The problem with the trans fallacy is people who are trans-rational and will point at this, like let's say you and me will point at these bigger picture things, will be labeled as pre-rational magical thinkers by people stuck in rational phase.
Yeah.
And so we sound like aliens. The pre-rational people sound like, imbeciles.
Totally.
And the rational people are just pointing at both of them going, idiots.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's a frustrating situation. That's the pre-trans fallacy.
Yeah.
Now, what were we talking about before? I was saying something about you had said something about something that I wanted to follow up on, but yeah, you were saying about the energy in here and in the Silicon Valley and going to the airport, that feeling. Oh, anyways, it'll come back to us. Yeah. So that's what it was. So journaling.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I should remember journaling. Yep.
Now, you ask patients to do this.
I do.
Yeah.
And I actually lecture on journaling too. And I've actually shared some excerpts on slides about the types of things that I write. And, it doesn't have to – this is, again, a shame thing where people feel like my journal has to be publishable quality, right? But sometimes the things I write on pages is just – you just have to freeform it.
Yeah.
Like, use – 4-letter words if you have to. I call it extreme journaling. It's almost better for you to exaggerate the emotions and say, I really effing can't stand this. Like, get it all out there, because sometimes you read it, you're like, whoa, I can't believe my ego you're almost like a scribe for your ego. Your hand's like moving by itself. So I just tell people, and if you're afraid someone's going to find it, just put it in the shredder. Like, just write it all down, get it out there, look at it with your own eyes, and then just absorb that and process it. And it is so liberating to do that. And for many of my patients who are struggling with sleep, just doing a thought download before bedtime is so powerful. Just to write down those emotions. If they have a to-do list, just keep that by the bedside, and they sleep so much better. They feel so more rested. But I think the studies behind journaling are just, it's endless. I mean, journaling is so powerful. It's such a great tool we can use.
That is so good.
Yeah.
Now, here's an interesting question. Do you have them physically write on paper, or do you have them type it into Apple Notes or something?
I would rather have them physically write on paper.
Why?
Because it does slow down the mental process even more. Again, and now we're spending so much time on screens, just the association with being on a screen is creating a different mental dynamic. But having said that, if people happen to be at work, they don't have paper, and they want to type it out, I've tried that. I've used like apps for journaling.
Right.
Completely different experience when you put pen to paper. It's so different. And sometimes if I'm feeling intense, I mean, literally my pen is like tearing through the paper. Like you can really put that energy into the writing. And it's funny, these journals at some point I'm going to give to my kids. Now I find myself highlighting passages in my journal because if my dad had a journal, I'm like, it would be so amazing to just go through what he was going through as an immigrant. I know, it'd be amazing. So I'm keeping, I don't know if they're going to read it or not, but I'm like kind of putting that aside. So I think that's another powerful reason for journaling is hopefully future generations can kind of see what we went through and learn from that.
Man, that's just beautiful. I wanted to say something about pen to paper.
Yeah.
So I think, and this is my own hypothesis, but others have speculated about this, part of the grief of the electronic medical record, it's wonderful on many levels, right? I'm not a Luddite. I love technology. Clearly, you can see all the junk in this room.
Right.
Part of the grief that of having spanned both worlds, you and I both.
Oh, we did.
Right? We lived in paper.
Yeah.
Is that if everything is energy, our body is really an energetic thing, and it's connected right to our thoughts and our emotions. The hand that writes is the right hand connected to left brain and so on. And there's if you're right-handed, and there's a way of cognizing that's embodied. You feel it in your body when you write. Mm-hmm. It's totally different when you're typing with two hands, and it's very unconscious. Yeah. And that's different. So when we write notes about our patients, we're cognizing those patients in both forms. And it's very different when you write it and when you're typing it or when you're dictating it. So I think that's why I really like that you're asking people to do it on paper. Also, it takes that screen association away.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. Any thoughts on that before I tell one story?
No, go ahead. Yep.
So the story was this about journaling. So when I went to this retreat, after the first half day when I first arrived and we were silent for a fair bit of it, I started just going, this is really interesting. Like I need to write everything down that's happening because I noted, and I'd been meditating for about 8 years, but a kind of amateur hour. At the best, I'd got up to an hour a day, and then I backed off because my neck started hurting. But I realized it wasn't the meditation that was hurting my neck, it was screens. It was this.
Yep.
But meditation did not make it better because you have to sit still and so on. So I was writing, and in the first day or two, on Apple Notes. So I'm writing because we got to use our devices after 7 p.m. when we broke silence. And I didn't check email or do any of that, but I said, I'm going to write on Apple Notes because I don't need paper. So I would write things like, wow, it's fascinating how easily I was able to drop into meditation. But then tonight, it's like thoughts came back with a vengeance. It was like a radio station on scan, just constant thoughts. I couldn't sleep, just thoughts were going. So I'm writing this down. The next day, strong emotions are coming up, and this, and I'm trying to get very granular. And I sat next to this person, and I could feel this kind of tension. And this, day 3, I just wrote, there are no words for this.
Nice.
And that was the end of the journal.
Yeah.
And we still had days to go. And what happens is it becomes so ineffable that even putting those things into words feels like you're not in presence sometimes. So it is interesting. I think the journaling is a wonderful way to connect with our thoughts and emotions. And then there's an even more transcendent experience you can have eventually. And you can combine them. You know? But yeah.
Totally. I think one of the other key concepts for our folks, because I know a lot of this might be over their head, and trying to use the mind to fix the mind is always can be a losing proposition, right?
Yeah.
But what you talked about, what we both believe in, is those physical sensations, just being aware of that. And, it's a bi-directional thing where emotional tension and pressure is going to create physical tension and pressure. But also, if you're feeling physical tension and pressure, you can find a way to release some of that. It can relax the mind as well, too. So that's one tactic that you can use. So if you've got a sore spot, so one of the things we talked about in the last show, and now that I'm following up with patients, they're saying it's benefited them so much, is how do you work in positions and ways that can keep your body relaxed?
Oh, let's talk about that.
So yeah, we spend so much time in front of screens, and a few things is number one, a lot of people have gotten standing desks, which is great because they think sittings, obviously sitting has a lot of adverse health consequences, but also standing straight like a statue, that's not necessarily a healthy, optimal position either. It's like being aware of your muscle tone. Some people are just very stiff when they're standing at the computer. It's creating a lot of neck tension, lower back tension. And that tension is basically signaled to the brain as a stress signal. So then all of a sudden, when you're looking at the same volume of work and emails, it's going to be much more stressful to do that. So, this whole act of basically changing positions, going from sitting to standing, being aware of muscle tone, sort of what I call yoga at work, where you're doing all types of different things to really keep the muscles relaxed, it can be very liberating. So that's the first thing, is being aware of that physical muscular body. The second thing is the breathing is huge. And there was one summary article that I saw where it said that most people, when they type an email, actually stop breathing. So they called it email apnea is what they called it, which is true. If you pay attention to when you're on the screen, we underbreathe, we hyperventilate to some degree, and we stop breathing when we're actually typing. And when you pay attention to that, and so what kind of signal is that sending to our brain? It's telling us that you're running out of oxygen.
Yeah.
On top of that, when you're in front of a screen, so if you've ever watched these horror movies like Blair Witch Project or somebody's getting chased, usually you can hear their breathing, and then all of a sudden they've got tunnel vision, right? So whenever our visual fields are narrowed for a long period of time, that sends an immense stress signal to the body that this person's under stress. And when we're in front of screens, under breathing, and we've got a narrow field of vision, that is sending significant panic signals, or even at least low-level stress signals to the body on a continuous basis.
Wow.
Now, the interesting thing is, so visual fatigue is something that we don't talk about. And again, the yogis used to do something called ocular yoga, where they do things with the eyes, like they might put warm packs, they warm their hands up with the sun and put their palms over their eyes. I started doing that recently, and I've realized that a lot of my fatigue is coming from ocular fatigue. And that whole tunnel vision issue, which is interesting, is what do we do when we actually go from that laptop screen or a desktop to resting outside? We get our phone out. So we're literally going from this lens to this, even though we're sitting outside.
Right.
So we're not even resting those eyelids that are become totally fatigued. That's like you and I going to the gym and we're doing squats and getting our legs tired. I'm like, hey, let's go take a break and do some deadlifts and lunges, right?
Same thing.
So same thing. You're getting in front of a screen. So if you allow the eyes to relax a little bit and you look at the wide panorama, which is why we feel spiritual when we see like a wide panoramic view. Or just look up at the sky and just keep your phone down and just do that for a few minutes throughout the day. It can really change that overall, stress pattern that we've just taken for granted. The way we work is it's just sending these signals to the body that, my God, there's a lot going on. Even if it's a casual email you're sending and you're not feeling that way, we're just sending those stress signals constantly to the body.
Every company on the planet should hire you to come.
You guys hear that?
Yeah, you hear that?
Yeah, right, totally.
No formal pitching here, but
Totally.
that's the way we should talk about ergonomics, is really paying attention to what's happening in the body, feeling it out. So a couple things with this, that neck pain that I talked about, and I've talked about this before, it's a screen-based tech neck, really. But it comes with an emotional and a psychological thought-based baggage. So, oh my God, I'm ruined. I've had this now for years. Like I've damaged myself. This will never get better. I will never be whole again.
Right. Yeah, totally.
And so during the retreat, I feel like I'm really perseverating on this retreat, but it was that powerful. So
there's worse things to perseverate on, by the way. Right?
There are, like whether I'm going to get that $150,000 Tesla with the plaid now. Jesus. So.
That envy's bubbling up even for me now.
I feel it now. I feel it now. Totally. And then you release it. It's like a fish. What a beautiful fish I've caught. It's a fish. It's envy. I'm going to release it back into the stream and back into the flow.
That's a good visual.
And so you see it, you feel it, you forgive yourself for feeling it, you accept
release, catch and release.
Another interesting trick with emotion like that is to honor it.
Yeah.
You'd said like envy with a VI, that's vile, right?
Yeah,
now that's wonderful. And it's a good way to look at it. I might even say you could take it a step further and go, envy, my old friend, you're here. Like you're trying to keep me safe. Like are part of me. You're an energetic pattern that wants me to be happy by looking at another and being like, you could be happy like that. Like, let's strive for that. Okay, great. I love you. You're wonderful. I'm going to let you go. You can stay as long as you need. I'm going to feel you directly. I'm not going to tell stories about you. I'm not going to get lost in thought. And then I'm going to let you go when you're ready to go. And that's
a compassionate way to approach it.
It's compassion. That's the word. Totally. It's compassion. So speaking of compassion, the neck pain kicks up in one of the silent meditations. I'm there on the chair, and for the first time in the week, I'm starting to feel it because I haven't used devices, and it's there, and I'm like, oh, and the thoughts start to race around it, like, oh, here you are damaged. You're sitting on this uncomfortable chair in the middle of Monterey. By the way, why are you here? What are you, some kind of hippie? Like, this is bullshit. You know that, right? And then it's really starting to, the ego mind's starting to, because it knows you better than you know yourself. It's like, oh, I know all the tricks to get your attention. Like, you think this is woo-woo, don't you? Because you're actually a skeptic. And then so I said, okay, what did I learn about sensation? Shower your attention on it. Feel what it is without labels. So I start to feel this energy, and it goes from pain and suffering, where it's an overlay of thought. This is bad. Because that's the first label that the mind puts on, is it feels the raw sensation and then it labels it good or bad. That's the first pivot of mind. And then all the stories start to come out from that. So I go, okay, there it is, bad. Okay, I see that. All right, what about the raw energy of it? Okay, dude. And then something insane happened. It transmutes from an unpleasant label sensation to an ecstatic kind of pleasurable sensation. So this pain was suddenly vibrating with a live energy of just joy, and then it dissipated.
Look at that, right?
And I mean, and others had said the same thing. I had this hip pain. I was so uncomfortable. When I finally just surrendered to it and stopped labeling it, it did this thing. And the goal is not to get rid of the sensation. It's not to push it away. It's to accept it unequivocally.
Totally.
To say yes to what is without labels. And it works. It works.
I'm going to give your listeners and viewers maybe a little bit of a framework for tying a lot of this together. So, because I have done a couple of workshops for physicians as well on a very small scale. And there's something we refer to as our SOAP note, right? So usually you're writing a note down in a chart for the non-physicians out there, and we put our subjective, what's the patient complaint? The objective is vital signs and physical. We got the assessment and plan. But based on our conversation, I want to sort of use that acronym a little bit differently. And the first S I want you to think about is sensation. Like, what are the sensations you're feeling on a regular basis? Really get in touch with your body like it's a musical instrument. Like, my kids play piano, they play keyboard, and when something's out of tune, they can just tell. It's like, it just makes their skin like writhe because they just know when a musical instrument's in tune. I want you to develop that level of sensory awareness so you know when something's off. So sensation's the first one. The second O is observation. Observe the thoughts like we've been talking about, the catch and release. Just watch those thoughts and see what's happening. Then A is awareness, but it's also acceptance. Just like you said, accept the envy and be compassionate to it. So that's the A part. And then the P is purpose and plan, right? So just wrap it up with that. What is my purpose? And it doesn't have to be a huge meta purpose. Today, my purpose is to spend quality time with my kids or go for a walk with my dog. So that's kind of a framework I'm using in my head, and it's really helped a lot of my patients, clients, etc. But something to sort of think about to wrap up a lot of these concepts.
That's really good. That's really good, because that's an actionable way of doing things. Because I think one of the this is why I love you, Ron, because you actually. I like to speak in these sort of broad platitudes, and I give a lot of my own experience, and I say, this, but then when at the end of the day, I'm not very diligent. So it's one of my personality traits is diligence is not high, enthusiasm very high, compassion quite high.
We need those.
Diligence very low, neuroticism quite high. It's a toxic stew, and so I often will fall back into patterns of behavior where I'm unconscious again. Now, what you're saying is, okay, well, here's a way to stay conscious. Sensation, starting with sensation. What's more immediate than your immediate experience?
Right.
There's nothing else in the universe that's happening. It is the universe. It's this. This cup here is everything right now when I shower my attention on it. The sensation of the fingers touching the cold glass, the sight of the water in it. And you talked about peripheral vision. That's a sensation. It's a kind of sensation.
Totally.
It's visual sensation. When you broaden to include your peripherals and you soften your focus, that left brain is no longer grabbing onto things and labeling them. It's a soft, holistic view that allows you to drop into a presence. And when I say presence, it's a loaded term. It's a feeling tone. It's like a,
Yeah, we've all felt it, right? Like you go hiking, you see something, you see the ocean, you see the mountains, whether you're religious or not, all of us know what that's in. You hear a music, right? Hey, by the way, I have to say that I was listening to some of your podcasts, and there was one thing that you said, which I think was probably the most important, purposeful thing that you've ever said. So can I just share that?
I'm sitting on eggshells
ready?
here.
Are you ready for this? I actually stopped. I got off my exercise bike because I was on the edge of my seat. And it was basically when you said, what was the best Men at Work song ever written? And I was really afraid you were going to say Down Under or the usual stuff. And you said Overkill.
Overkill.
How could that not be, right? I mean, you hear the first few saxophone notes of that, and I'm in that zone. Like, there's music can do that to us as well, too.
It brings you right into flow, right into presence.
Totally.
And you know, post retreat, I've always been emotionally sensitive to music. Like, I'll cry with like listening to Thus Spake Zarathustra, the 2001 theme. There's a part in it where, you know, it goes dun, 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 dun. And I will just burst into tears.
Right. Yeah.
And it feels sublime. It feels like the ascent and the descent of the spirit and all this. And I feel it in this way. After this retreat, I've been so sensitized that any kind of music, I feel it in the body, and sometimes the emotions will come. So Overkill is interesting. I'm glad you picked Overkill, because Overkill is about being mind identified and trapped in anxiety, the actual lyrics. You know, day after day it reappears, night after night my heartbeat shows the fear. You know, ghosts appear and fade away, come back another day.
So beautiful.
He can't sleep. And he says, okay, so I can't sleep, so time to walk the streets, you know, smell the dispersion. So he goes out, he takes a walk, and he says, at least there's pretty lights, and though there's little variation, it nullifies the night. So he's going back to sensation from Overkill. It's actually a remarkably deep and beautiful
It's a deep song.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I hope everyone listens to it again.
I know,
right,
I know.
So
and Colin Hay did an unplugged acoustic version for the show Scrubs.
Oh,
it is amazing.
I think I recall that. Yeah.
So
I got to
good.
recheck
Scrubs
that out.
Is, by the way.
Oh, it's amazing.
Talk about envy. When Scrubs came out, I was filled with rage. I was like, these guys did everything I want to do, and they did it better than I could ever do it.
Yeah, it was an amazing show.
Yeah, it really was. Like when I see Andy Samberg and Lonely Island do parodies of things or their own like funny songs, I'm like, these guys are the gold standard. Like, I can't even come close to this. And you're right. It's that compassionate answer is, oh my God, it's so wonderful these people are in the world.
Oh,
you know, like
totally.
what a joy
Seriously.
to see creatives do something that you care about and you try to do and do it so well.
Yep.
You know, the rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, you have to be aware. I love it. So you have your soap note, you have your journaling.
Yep.
What other sort of action tips do you have for people that take this metaphysical stuff and kind of make it more concrete, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many places we can go, right? I think one of the things is just coming back to the physical activity and exercise, because I think people have still developed an all or nothing approach to the exercise part of it.
Yeah, tell me about this.
I mean, I do have individuals that feel like unless they're really out breaking a sweat and just raising their heart rate to, you know, X levels, they're not getting a good workout in. And so a lot of them will just sit all day and they're not really doing anything else. But I've had so much success with patients just learning to implement just regular activity in intermittent spurts. That's so much more doable. And it's really just a right level of activity where your body can still burn fat, you can stabilize blood sugar. So one hint on the sensor, because I know not everybody's had the experience with the glucose sensor.
We'll do a show where you put it on me,
I'm going to put it on you for sure.
Yeah.
But when you put a sensor on, one of the most remarkable things is if you eat something that's high glycemic that raises your blood sugar, like a 15-minute walk without breaking a sweat can just plateau that blood sugar in such a powerful way. It's not like you have to go out and have a crazy workout to do that, but these little micro movements throughout the day just have such a huge impact on blood pressure, on blood sugar, and I think a lot of us sort of miss out on that opportunity. So,
and how much of it is the mental benefit of exercise that then has an effect on cortisol?
That's true. I mean, some of that definitely does that, but the more immediate response, because it's so immediate, is really just pushing some of that glucose into muscles that are being activated. But I agree, the long-term effect of that does improve that liver sensitivity to the cortisol too. So it does hit it from both ends.
Yeah, and what are the effects on general body inflammation of these kind of activities? Lower level exercise versus
positive.
Higher.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. I mean, the people that are doing a lot of high-intensity type exercise, they do get chronic elevations in cortisol and C-reactive protein. protein, which is a blood marker for inflammation. So often I will see patients that have had persistently elevated levels of CRP, and we think about what are the different things we can do. And sometimes it is exercise toxicity. I mean, when we get them back to doing just regular exercises, yoga, just light walks, light to moderate walking, things do improve. The other mantra I sort of give around physical activity, because I see so many injuries, from, patellofemoral syndrome to plantar fasciitis. And, my office, I've got a window and I see joggers going up and down the street and people wearing knee braces. And first of all, I just don't understand why people feel the need to have to run.
To push through, yeah.
Like a lot of my folks just should not be running at all.
Right.
Like, I mean, they just need to be walking or fast walking.
Right.
And that's all they need. And then when they get into decent enough shape, they can intersperse a little bit of running into that.
Sure.
So injury prevention is a big thing that I'm focused on. And I tell people first, the number one thing I want you to be is an athletic worker. And when I'm being an athletic worker is doing the postures, the positions, opening up the joints, keeping the muscles loose, stretching your hamstrings while you're standing. And once you're really good at sort of standing, engaging the core, now you become a really good walker, a fast walker. And, check your times to see that you're actually getting faster and faster. And then you can maybe go on to doing things like sports and running. It sounds like a very slow, methodical way to do it, but this is what really reduces so much injury, pain, and suffering. Because otherwise people go, the Couch to 5K is actually a decent approach. I don't know if you know that app, Couch to 5K.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's actually a really good approach because it has people mixing light walking. It gradually gets them up to that 5K level rather than joining a running group and just going crazy and
hurting
injuring yourself.
Yeah.
But again, I think physical activity, we need to sort of redefine how we get people more active without putting them in a big boot camp or some high intensity class without doing that. So that'd be another thing that I'd share.
Yeah, I think that's very helpful. I know so many people who've lost weight just by getting up and walking, and not having to do all this aggressive stuff. And that's another, it's a big Silicon Valley thing. Like, oh, did you run a half marathon yet? Have you,
Right. Totally.
Yeah, like, oh, how many miles did you ride on your bike? I bought this really fancy bike when I was in Vegas, and I came here, and I used to ride it a lot in Vegas. I came here, and there were so many more bikers, and I got the sense you could feel the energy of competition. Like if you're riding out on Cañada Road when they close it on Sunday, people are just freaking booking through there, and I'm just like, dude, this is now a game. This is how I will play this game, and I'm just, and I just got so disgusted.
Right.
And I finally now the bike sits in the garage, and I'm much happier doing different sorts of exercise.
But you still wear the biker shorts, right?
Of course. So, that's just mainly to get the male camel toe, which is very
right. Totally.
It's very important. What's the role of laughter and entertainment in this?
Oh my God. People just aren't laughing enough, except for the people who watch your show, obviously, right?
No, they're laughing at me rather than with me.
At you. But, it's all about, again, we're kind of waxing and waning between spiritual and sort of physical and biological and physiological. But
they're
if you
all
just
one
think
continuum.
they're all one container.
Yeah.
But the diaphragm, if we just focus on the diaphragm, we are not activating the diaphragm enough, right? The division between our stomach contents and our upper thorax, the lungs, the heart. That's where basically the vagus nerve is, which activates and turns on our relaxation system. So everything I talked about, when we're undergoing email apnea and we're under breathing while we work, we're barely moving that. I mean, we obviously are moving the diaphragm, but we're not really activating that vagus nerve. So it sends a serious stress signal to the entire body. When you laugh, and especially you're doing a belly type laugh, you are definitely, activating that diaphragm. There's a guy named Madan Kataria. You should check out his YouTube videos. He's like the master of laughter yoga.
Oh,
He's
wow.
like, the WHO's invited him, but he teaches people how to laugh, even when things are funny, just a physical act of laughing. So he's got about 1,000 different laughs, like the lion laugh, like all these silly laughs.
Wow.
But he gets people together, and without telling any jokes, he's like, let's do this X sort of laugh. And people have been transformed by that practice because, again, it's kind of like the body-mind bidirectionality. You don't necessarily have to find something funny, but just if you just engage, go the other way. So I tell people, even if a joke's not funny, just laugh like it's the funniest thing you've ever heard.
Thank you for telling people that, because that just makes my life so easy.
Totally.
I don't have to be funny at all. They're just laughing. I'm like, this guy's laughing at nothing. This is great.
Yeah, but that's a diaphragm. And then the singing is the other one too. I don't care if you're a crappy singer. Sing Overkill today, in the car, in the shower, whatever. You just want to activate that diaphragm as much as you can. It just feels so cathartic. When people people cry, like when you have repressed emotions, you have a fight with a significant other, you cry it out. And what do you feel after that? You just feel so
light.
much release. But again, coming back to emotional suppression, some of us are so suppressed that we're out in public. We don't want to laugh too hard. We're like, it's like, right, exactly, right? We're like, we're singing. Oh, God forbid somebody hears me sing, right?
Oh, dude.
All these things, right? So it's like, and we're just,
Welcome
we're sending
to my
a
world.
I
I have to do this shit for a living.
I know, right?
I can't get to sleep.
Right.
Day after day it reappears.
Totally. So, I mean, what kind of signal? I mean, we've just severed the nerve of joy basically by doing all these things.
We've done a joyotomy.
Yeah.
Joyectomy. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Totally.
Oh, man.
So, yeah.
These are real important pointers.
Yeah.
And not just for our patients, but for our own lives as doctors and nurses and pharmacists who are all, we're collectively suffering a bit.
We're suffering. And all we're saying is to, like, all these characteristics we're talking about, we're just trying to reconnect back to our inner child.
That's
right?
who we are, yeah.
Yeah. It's not, we're not going for version 2.0. We're going for our default version 0.0.
Yeah.
We started in the beginning,
Yeah.
right?
Now,
it's like,
now watch out for the pre-trans fallacy.
Oh, shoot.
So,
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
so yes,
Yeah.
take the child, transcend and include the child. Do not reject the child,
Yeah.
but don't return to pure child because
No,
pure
that's
child
true.
didn't have rational thought. So exactly what you're saying, and it's like, in improv,
Good,
it's always
good
yes and.
yes, exactly. That's right. Totally.
But oh man, and there's a quote in Angelo's book on Awakening where I forget who said it, but it was something like, adults are the corpses of children. And that's why, who've then entered polite society, which is, one of the nicer names for hell. And we do all this stuff. And he goes, that's why sometimes we're very uncomfortable around children, even though we love them, because they remind us of what we've lost. So we've transcended without including. We've rejected and repressed.
Yeah.
And so taking that child along, and actually that inner child, and therapists talk about this all the time.
Totally.
Really just holding it close and saying, this child is okay. I love you. You're good. Is so powerful. It's such a powerful healing thing. You talked about emotion and crying as a release. Yes. And one thing I learned at this retreat is that kind of crying. I had this kind of crying that I don't really have.
Was it convulsive?
Convulsive. The whole body was involved. The tears come out without any sobbing or any of that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have a self-pitying component to it. It's a pure feeling tone with a physical manifestation. It's almost like you're releasing this energy that you've been repressing.
Oh, yeah.
And that energy felt to me like the suffering of the entire world, including me, but including everybody else.
Yeah.
You just feel it. That's what suffering is. Like, let it go. Just let it go. It's okay.
Yeah.
Suffering itself is beautiful,
Yeah.
but you have to allow. You can't resist. And once that happens...
I mean, by the way, you put yourself in the midst of a battlefield for a very long time, right? I mean, the COVID things that you've done to raise awareness, I mean, you've really put your mental health on the line but by guiding all of us to do this, right? So how many repressed emotions have you built up over that time?
Man.
I mean, it really needed to be released. I'm so thankful that you were able to find this opportunity to do that.
What a generous act of compassion to even see that, right, Ron? Thank you. It's difficult, but honestly, my job is... What it was for me, there was a lot of that, and I noticed that things used to trigger me a lot, like a certain Twitter comment or something about from a fellow person in my tribe of physicians would just trigger me to think of just a thought storm of all the different responses I could put, and then but really I'm like, well, is that true? Do I need to reevaluate? And now I'm just like, everybody's trying to be good in their own way. They're doing what they can, and so. You just got to accept it and let it go, and also forgive yourself and say, okay, there's shame. I see shame. Okay, well, I'm going to let shame be. It's okay. Right. And then, when you're meditating, if you start to cry, don't repress it.
Oh,
I used to, sometimes those feelings would come up during meditation at home, and I would repress it. Well, what if my wife walks in? What if the kids walk in? They're going to see daddy with tears streaming down his face.
It took me years to even cry after my dad passed. That's how hard it's internalized, right? It took me a few years to get to the point where I can just cry. I mean, it just shows how pathological this sensation can get of just internalizing. And that's a story we hear from older generations that so-and-so toughed it out. They did X, Y,
White-knuckled
Z.
it.
Yeah, they white-knuckled it. But man, there is a major downstream sound. There's a big cost to that white knuckling attitude.
There's a cost. There's a cost, and and that brings me to this other idea of and again, I'm just going to pitch this meditation thing because yes, it can be destabilizing if you don't have support. If you have support, the idea of self work, of introspection, is powerful, not just for you. So this is something that became clear at the retreat when self started to become fuzzy. Like, who is this I, right? When that happens, you realize you're doing this not for you. You're doing this for every sentient being that interacts with you and the broader truth. And this became apparent when I got home. And I was so present for my children. I could feel it. Like they had all this stuff to tell me because it's a week of repressed no daddy.
Right, yeah.
No daddy to yell at. And, no daddy to be like, yeah, tell me about your day while he's looking at his phone and just splitting his attention. Like, it was just like me. Wide open eyes, just tell me what's going on. And at first they were disconcerted. And then pretty soon they were just like, oh my gosh, this guy's giving me all his attention.
Yeah.
Like when I talk. And so now what I tell them is, they'll try to get my attention and I'm doing something. I'll say, I'm doing this thing right now. It's going to take me another X minutes. When I'm done, I'm going to come and listen to your story. And they know what that means now. They know that it means that that's perfect. I'm going to come and be fully present.
Fully focused. Yeah. Yep.
Totally. And they open up.
They do.
They relax. You feel it energetically too. You're like, oh, and this is why my wife's like, hey, if you want to do another retreat, no problem.
Right. Yeah, totally. So true.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if that's the one thing we can get out of this, we'd all do anything for our kids, right? So when we're more present, and it's not a coincidence. I mean, if I were to do a study, like there are some times that I get up at night, sleep sometimes is an intermittent challenge for me.
Me too.
But for me, instead of staying in bed, I will go to the room, I'll journal, and then I'll sort of meditate and just think about the kids, my wife, and just really just send positive vibes that way, and I do that. And 99% of the time, we have like the best day the next day. It's like, it's almost like that energy like suffused or perfused the walls and had an impact on them. And then you try to send that even more widely, right, to people that need it. And again, I know, like you said, it all comes back to energy. It can really do that. And that's made, now I don't really, before I'm like, oh my God, I got up. How am I going to get through the day? But I'm like, I'm grateful for the opportunity to get up and have that time. And usually I can come back to bed because now I'm not anxious about that. I can fall back asleep. And on the sleep note too, there was a practice that I used to do a while ago and I kind of resurrected again that's really helped me a lot. And it's called Yoga Nidra. I don't know if you've heard of this.
I've heard of this, yeah.
And it's become
yoga?
super popular now because, again, we need a left brain person to promote it. So there's a gentleman named Dr. Andrew Huberman.
Oh, Huberman Lab here at Stanford.
Yeah, the Huberman Lab, right?
Yeah.
So he's been talking a lot about Yoga Nidra because they're actually doing studies on it. And, the traditional thought behind Yoga Nidra is when you lay down and do this practice, which is a very passive practice. Literally, it's like self-hypnosis. You lay down and there's a voice that basically tells you to focus on different body parts. You're just subtle awareness. You're not contracting it like progressive muscle relaxation, but it's like a body scan that you do while there's very subtle messages in the background. And the traditional thinking is that if you can do Yoga Nidra in a specific way, it can actually mimic some of the sleep cycles. And I've found that sometimes when I get up during the night, if I do that for 15 to 20 minutes, I'll get up and I really don't feel like I missed out on sleep. I'm wearing an Oura ring. I'm so good at now that my Oura ring doesn't even know I got up because sometimes I'll do it in bed. Wow. So it literally registers like I've actually slept through the night.
Wow.
And even when I get up, like I'm still a little bit tired, but I'm in a different state of consciousness where like my writing and speaking is different. So now I don't think about, oh my God, I'm be tired, I'm be messed. I'm like, this is a different version of Ron that might actually produce some things that are very different and creative. But the Yoga Nidra, just for your listeners out there, since he did that podcast, it's become very popular. There's a lot of channels out there, and there's 10-minute versions, 15, 20-minute versions. Even before I came here, I did a 12-minute version because the morning was super busy with all this stuff. I'm like, I got to be centered when it comes to Z. So I literally lay on the floor with the blanket on, turn the YouTube Yoga Nidra, 12 minutes. And even though I wasn't asleep, I got up and I was like, I can get through this day. Like you just feel like you're in a different space. So look up Yoga Nidra. I'm Stanford studying it. And again, it's one of these things that if I told you pre-studies, people might think it's woo-woo. But because somebody like Dr. Huberman's been talking about it, now like everyone's starting to do it, which I think is fantastic. These are the types of messages we got to get out there.
Oh man, that's great. You know what? I got to say this, an observation. We've done a few shows together.
Yeah.
Your energy coming in the door today was different.
Yeah, you're right.
You can feel it.
Yeah.
And people who watch my show say, oh, your energy has been different since this retreat, especially the first couple shows.
Yeah.
Like speaking slower, more silence in between. I don't do it as much when we're having conversations, but you can drop right into that state with some practice, and that means it is a practice.
Yeah.
The Yoga Nidra is a practice.
Totally.
The compassion part. All right. So this is going to sound stupid, but it's absolutely true. When they say love is everything, right? Unconditional love is everything. That's a cliche until it's not.
Right.
Until you experience what that is. And there are practices that will connect you to that. And you did it. You know, when you're journaling and you send out love to your family and then to the broader, and then when you send it to your enemies.
Yeah, exactly.
When people that you really don't like,
Yeah.
that's when you're the master of that.
That's exactly right.
And
Yeah.
it is so powerful because it opens you. It opens that energetic pathway that you're now open to return on luck. You're now open to what is. When you talked about waking up at night and struggling with sleep, I struggle with sleep too. I used to resist and, you know, oh God, why am I awake now?
Yeah.
I'm never going to get back to sleep.
Right.
And, but the minute you wake up, if you say, oh, okay, I'm awake now. Let me see what's next. What's going to happen next? I can do yoga nidra, or I'm going to go up and journal. Or, you know, what happened to me at this retreat was I had an experience where I woke up with substernal chest pain. And I don't know if I told this story. I think I told it in my supporter show, but I woke up in the middle of the night. I'd had this dream about one of the people at the retreat having this conflict with her sister. And it felt real. Like it was like she was there, almost like I was her. And these experiences sometimes happen at these collective retreats. And it was like conflict, like this repressed anger and all this other stuff. And so I woke up just like laying on my back. I don't sleep on my back well because I tend to snore, and then I like to roll on my side.
Right.
This is what my wife tells me anyways. And so I had this like elephant sitting on my chest and like little tachycardia. And I was like, holy shit, am I dying? Do I need to call 911? Because left brain is going, bitch, you need to call 911.
Right.
Like, this is like, you're 48. Like, this is when you have
the South Asian,
big LED.
Yeah, check off all the boxes.
All the boxes.
Totally, right.
You know, you're stressed at, you know, waking up with this stressful dream. So what was weird was there was an intuition. I was like, no, this is not an MI. This is energetically something different. I felt it. So I'm going to trust what is. Yeah. And if it feels different, I'll call 911. So I get up from this tiny little room in SLMR in Monterey. And it's not even that I sat in this chair. I was sat in this chair. Like something I would just sit, I'm going to sit, close my eyes, went into a meditative state. And, had this sensation of pure energy, like of vibrating, like just all the suffering of the entire world passed through this tensity in the chest.
Yeah.
And, you know, tears and all of this. And it felt like, it's indescribable. To try to put words to it would be dumb.
Yeah.
So I won't do it. But I'll say it was transformative because when I got up, I felt like I was light, like floating.
Yeah.
And I just went back to bed, fell asleep. And the next day I asked that person, hey, do you have a sister? Because we'd hardly talked. And she's like, yeah, I have a sister. Do you have any conflict with her? And she was like, yeah, there's some conflict. I was like, oh. Now, again, I'm not invoking magical pre-rational thinking. I'm just saying, you know, it was interesting. I think that there's an infectious energy that happens. Yeah. But the idea that we repress and that compassion was the source of that. I felt love for everybody who suffers. It was weird. And it was a selfless experience, meaning there was nobody feeling it. It was just this energy. Really interesting.
And feeling that for, like you said, your quote enemies, that's if we consider this emotional resistance training, right? It's easy for me to send love to my kids, to my dog, to my wife, to my mom. And you practice that, right? So you can feel that sensation.
Those muscles are big already.
But if you want to max out and do your 1 rep max, then you got to go to that person, right? That brings out those other sensations. And can you at least picture that person as being a child or something? I have a specific anecdote from my practice where there was a receptionist that was going through a very difficult time and was kind of mistreating. This is in one of my administrative offices, and was being really angry and cranky with a lot of people that were coming up to her and just really not treating them well. So all the backyard talk was like, we need to get rid of her. She's just being nasty to her customers and everything. And then finally I put her aside and had a conversation with her. And I found out that her daughter had died within the last week, just tragically at the age of 17.
Oh my gosh.
But, you know, whenever we have these interactions with people, you read those YouTube comments or that person in the grocery store, man, we don't know the backstory of what the heck's going on behind that. And if we can just have some awareness of that, hopefully we can send that out, right? And just,
that's loving other as yourself. I mean, all the wisdom traditions tell you to do this. It sounds like a cliche until it actually is experienced.
Right.
And then again, it's hard. It's not easy. We're not conditioned to do this. But when it's done, first of all, who does it help the most? It helps you.
Oh yeah.
The forgiveness and the energy. Now, it doesn't mean you let people stomp on you.
No.
Because one of the interesting things about anger as an emotion, as a pure emotion, this was something that I came in touch with recently in the retreat and beyond, is that I have trouble setting boundaries. So, and many doctors and healthcare people have this. They set boundaries either artificially, like too much, like, or they don't set enough boundaries and then they snap when it's been push, and then anger unleashed. And I'm in that category.
Yeah.
So I don't set boundaries. I try to be nice to people, this and that. And then when they really push me and I haven't set, you're really violating me here, then I snap in a very unproductive and cataclysmic way.
Yeah.
And this has been a pattern of behavior for me. So
okay.
So what I noticed is even at the retreat, there are a lot of supporters there, and there's some boundary stuff that happens with that. And I realized, I'm like, you know what, anger, and Angela wrote about this in this book, anger is our emotional energy pattern that tells us, hey, there's a boundary violation. And you can then wrap a lot of belief and thought and complex emotion around it, or you can just go, okay, that's anger. Let me just feel that. What's it pointing at? Okay. Yeah. So now I'm going to act now authentically from understanding this instead of repressing and then slashing out.
Yeah, totally.
And so this person that was working with you, if they had support and help and could process the emotion of losing a daughter, they wouldn't have had to manifest it that way. And if you hadn't been compassionate enough to take her aside and talk to her, then she would have been fired.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
How many people have gone through this now?
Oh my goodness. Who knows, right?
Yeah. It's I don't know. I feel like we fly blind so much of our
oh my gosh, totally. Yeah.
And our society does.
Right.
We give lip service to a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And we fetishize it.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's why my focus has really shifted. Again, I'm not losing hope in adults and grown people, but I mean, I think if we can use, kids as a bit of a window to this and see the benefits of that, because nothing gives us more joy when our kids are in a joyous place.
Yeah.
So if we can start there, I think that's a good space. But
I'll quote my homie JC, Jesus Christ. Who said, unless you become as children, you will never enter the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
And I think what he was pointing at was we have to, include our childish wonder, our sense of connection to the presence that we had as children that was beaten out of us by society.
So yep.
And that means that you don't lose hope for adults. You can actually reconnect with that. It's there still. It's just we've wrapped it in.
That's a word that you brought up. I got to elevate a little bit, is wonder. Because when you read a lot of these works, especially some of the folks that I talked about, the Vedantic leaders, they say that wonder is one of the most direct paths to self-enlightenment. Oh. And when I think about my dad, too, it's like everything he saw in nature is like, this is amazing. Like, COVID is devastating, but sometimes when you step back and you think, oh my God, this is like a wonder of nature. Like, the fact that, here we have all this modern technology and one virus comes in. Again, that sense of wonder, I think a lot of us are kind of missing out on that sensation of wonder, right? There's so many things we take for granted. And just like a child looks at the world with that sense of wonder, many of us just miss out on that. So,
And you know what? It's a non-conceptual experience.
Yeah.
And that's what transcends mind, because wonder is kind of like, awe, wonder, curiosity without needing an answer.
Exactly.
It's just like,
it's just what it is.
It's just what it is.
Yeah.
You said that some a wisdom tradition leader had said that wonder is a path to awakening or enlightenment.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's an almost necessary step to like, what is this? Who am I? Like, the present moment, when you really experience it, unfiltered.
Right.
It fills you with wonder. You're like, what is a sound?
You must have had so many moments of wonder on your retreat. I can only imagine,
dude,
right? So,
people would have thought I was on LSD. Like you go out from a break, like it's silent and you're in the state, and you walk out into a parking lot. Yeah. And I would gravitate to, there was this beautiful nature everywhere, redwoods, all this stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't care about any of that shit. I would walk to this pile of construction debris. It was chaotic. It was like, a piece of concrete here and some wood and a bunch of nails. It was off where it was kind of hidden, a bunch of trucks around it because I'd walked into the parking lot. And I would just look at this pile of concrete, and it was radiating aliveness. Like, this is all there is. It's as alive as anything else, and it's as present. So it is reality right now. And I felt love for this concrete
It's
pile.
interesting because there was so much for you to be drawn to, but it was almost like a magnet that pulled you in, right? So
I felt compelled.
Crazy. Yeah.
Like, what? Life is your teacher.
Yeah.
And life was like, reality was like, this is all, this is supposed to be beautiful. Your mind will label it as beautiful. But come over here to this piece of shit. and look at this.
Right.
And if you can feel the same way for this, then you're connecting with what's actually real,
That's right.
which is, vibrating aliveness of the present moment, pure sensation.
Yeah.
And again, there are levels of this. You don't have to live always like that. That's liberation all that way.
Totally.
If you can at least access it from time to time.
Completely. Yep.
If you can, before you walk into a patient's room, if you can really center yourself and become present, even with a couple breaths and then walk in, the energy you bring in that room is so different, and they'll open up in a different way.
Totally.
You're present like I am with the kids. They'll feel it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally.
They'll really feel it.
Powerful stuff, man.
It is, dude. We talked a long time, bro. It's like 2 hours.
Right. We really got deep, man.
Man, this was so much fun.
It was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, we're both going to lose our jobs. It's great. I love it. Yeah, I love it.
See all these unsubscribes on my newsletter list.
Yeah, mine too.
Okay, I thought this guy was scientific. He was talking about metabolism, and now what the hell is
that's when you just
doing?
respond, go pre-trans fallacy, bro. Okay, we're trans rational. That's another danger of any kind of spiritual path is in Zen they call it Zen stink. And it is the stink of spiritual ego. The ego hasn't quite dissolved. So it's like, bro, I'm so awake. Sometimes I can just drop into presence. I'm so in touch with my emotion body. I stared at a pile of trash for 4 hours. It was just radiating aliveness. People are like, shut the F up.
We're going to get some of those comments.
And you know what? They're deserved. Zen stink is a real thing. You got to wash it off.
Oh my gosh.
You got to wash it off. Brother, thank you, Ron. Okay, now here's the thing. I'm going to picture all your things. You got a website?
I do. And the easiest way to find it is just my name, roneshsinha.com. That'll get you redirect. So
Ronesh, and so RONESH
SINHA.com.
And I'll put it in all the show notes and links.
Yep.
And that's where all your things are, your podcast, your books, how to hire you to speak, other resources, blog stuff.
It's all there. The only social media that I engage with at some basis is Instagram. So I'm trying to make that more scientific. So I'm posting articles about insulin resistance, all that stuff.
Good for you.
That's Ronesh Sinha, MD. Okay. And the podcast, if you want to go direct to that, is called Meta Health. This is pre-Zuck, by the way. I came up with the name before that.
Right? You know what? That's awesome. Now he's going to sue you.
I'm hoping he's going to buy my URL. And as much as I'm against a lot of his philosophies, I can be bought.
No, you cannot be bought, except with a couple $1 billion.
That's right, exactly.
Oh my God, what's the URL?
So for the program, it's themetaprogram.com.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah.
I wish it was meta.com.
Dude,
I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be in that plaid, whatever you call it.
You'd have your Model X.
Yeah, and your envy levels would be up here because I'd be posting on Instagram and it'd be all over.
My emotions, I consider them like a graphic equalizer with different levels that do this. And when I really turn that bass up, that envy bounces. Then anger goes up with it, and then shame goes here.
Wow, I love that visual. That's cool.
Right? It's the graphic equalizer. Lucy McBride came on the show talking about emotional intelligence. She's a primary doc on the East Coast, and she has an emotional periodic table that she goes through with her patients.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. She's like, here's anger, AN, and here's grief, GR.
This is a cool thing. We talk about burned out doctors, but doctors that are awakening, they don't have to leave medicine altogether. I mean, look at you. It's like you're using your medical foundation of knowledge. You're infusing all this creativity, laughter, music. She's using the periodic table, which you wouldn't have learned about unless you went through, science and things.
Transcendent.
So there is incredible opportunities. So this could be the new generation of healthcare providers is use that scientific knowledge and then weave in some of that, spirituality and wisdom.
I'm gonna wrap with, because that's brilliant. I'm gonna wrap with yet another pitch for meditation retreats.
There we go.
And that is this. By the way, this retreat, this show is sponsored by meditationretreat.com. Meditationretreat.com, only $15,000, and you can be silent for 6 days with no food. Anyways, back to you, Ron. No, could you imagine if you try to monetize that? Go full Deepak Chopra, sell trippy lenses that help you get into presence. And so anyways, back to this. There were 7 or 8 doctors at this retreat.
Yeah.
There were many nurses, physical therapists, healthcare administrators, and they were drawn because of the show and because Angelo was also a doctor and he made it seem approachable, right? These very difficult esoteric ideas. 201 at day 7 or day 6, they said, you know what? This has been the most valuable thing I've done. If every physician could go through this, we would come back to our practice with a totally different mindset.
Different
we might
lens.
change some things, but we would mostly change what's here. And that would change actually everything. We all kind of looked at each other with this knowing look, like, well, wow, if the world woke up truly, like, you know, and we're only on the path. It's not like we're saying we're awakened beings. We're saying that just this glimpse of the path. So I think it's powerful. Now that's just one piece of growth. You talk about all the other pieces that are key, and whether it's therapy, journaling, soap notes, and they're all collaborative. They're all holistically true.
Yeah.
They're all true, but partial to the whole. And we're always striving to be a little more whole. So Ron Sinha, you've helped us become a little more whole today, as you always do.
You've given me the opportunity, man. It's always great to exchange. It's a very spontaneous, free-flowing. Nothing's held back when I talk to you, which is great. Yeah,
I feel it.
It's funny because people tell me, family members, like, I learn more from you when you talk to Z than you do in like family dinners and stuff, right?
That's a testament to you. Family dinner? Dude,
Thanksgiving.
My mom watches the show to learn about me. Because I'm so repressed about my own parents.
There's some weird dynamic with family.
There is with
right?
family, especially Indian parents. It's like,
oh, totally. They're like,
just like,
really?
if you say anything, you just want to be careful. You just want to focus on the accomplishments. Well, you know, I got this much ad revenue this month. Oh, that much. Well, why don't you have this much?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, well,
I know.
I don't
and
really
if you meet that,
it.
they're like, you can keep dropping F-bombs. That's fine.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's like, why do you curse so much? Gets more ad revenue. I should use that. That's great. It's not true, but I should get that. Ron, thank you again.
Hey. Pleasure.
Guys, I'm going to link to Ron's other shows with us that go into the nitty-gritty of breathing exercises, metabolic health, insulin resistance. We've talked about a lot of different things on the show. It's always a joy to have you on. It's one of the reasons I moved back to the Bay Area, despite all the pain and grief.
Nice. I'm like that pile of concrete, right? I drew you back in.
You're the steaming pile of feces that I could stare at for 4 hours and just feel love for.
I thought I saw a statue of that somewhere.
Oh, yeah. It's right there.
Oh, okay. There we go. Thank you.
My poo emoji concretized. Yes.
You called me Brown Morpheus last time. That was almost going to be the name of my podcast, the Brown Morpheus Show.
Oh my God, Brown Morpheus.
My kids got a big kick out of that. Yeah.
You know what? Sometimes I surprise myself at how good I am. Brown Morpheus is perfect.
Right. Oh no,
I love
the ego is coming up. Now.
I know, right? Wait till the spiritual ego comes out. Of course, I called you Brown Morpheus. I'm so awake, bro. Oh nice. Man, I love it. Brown Morpheus.
Awesome.
Until next time.
All right.
Can't wait. Oh, we'll see that new Matrix movie when it comes out.
That should be fun.
I love it.
I'd be up on it.
I love it. All right. We're out. Thanks,
Peace out, everybody. Bye.